What is up, RotoGrinders? Welcome back, NFL DFS week number 7. These weeks are flying by into the NBA season as well. Today, we're talking some NFL DFS. Joined today, as usual, with it's Kid Yahoo, Kirkwood, who's going to be bouncing off the walls. Just downed a whole bunch of Starbucks pre-show. We got former millionaire winner Bobby Gomes. How you feeling there, Kirkwood? You're bouncing off the walls just yet? How long does it take for the old Starbucks to kick in?
Woo! I'm fine. I'm exhausted, but I'm ready to go. Let's figure out this slate because I need to figure this out for myself too. It's gonna be a good day. It's gonna be a good day. It's gonna be a great day.
Is it? I mean, I'll tell you, is it a great slate? Because I was talking to Bobby, and we'll bring Bobby in a second. But this slate, a lot of good teams are missing. No Buffalo, no Rams. No Diggs, no Allen, no Kupp. No Jefferson, just a lot of good pieces, a lot of good players not playing in this main slate. I believe is there one game just kind of sort of barely above the 50 as far as total today? Seattle versus the Chargers, and those are two teams, like certainly the Chargers not been fully reliable all season long. There's like no good value plays. I mean, I'm curious. I'll ask the chat. What's up, chat? Hit that like button, subscribe. Good morning. Kindly turn those notifications so you know when we're going live. Just throw it out there, chat. Who's your favorite value play? You don't have to be site specific. Feel free to do so if you want to, but the values are like non-existent. Basically, we don't know about Keenan Allen. He may play later. There's signs are saying it seems like kind of sort of 50-50. It is backloaded also, Kirkwood, as far as the slate. Like it seems like a lot of the good plays are playing at 4 o'clock. Running back heavy, which is sort of weird. We haven't really had that this season. We actually had that last week, but running back kind of phased out earlier in the season. But do you agree with me? Like running backs feel much stronger as far as a pool than receivers do today?
Well, it's funny. So we're about to deal with the highest Josh Jacobs ownership we've ever seen in our entire DFS careers, and you feel very comfortable. That seems a little strange to me. Well, you just said you feel very comfortable at running back.
Well, as a pool, as a pool, it's the best pool, but like somebody's got to be the best by default. The receivers are just, and it's the receivers are weird. Nothing I don't like. Adams, of course, we learned about salary cap. I don't know if I can get there. There's some other pieces that are interesting. Lamb as well, but he's going to be really heavily owned. And then tight end, I was talking to Bobby about this as well. It's really hard to spend up a tight end. It really is, and that's why you probably should, because there's 2 really, really good ones in Kelsey and Andrews, and everybody else is just kind of a crapshoot. But salary cap reasons, and there's a lot of I don't want to say good options, I'll say, that are really, really cheap and tight end this week. Just as far as lineup construction, do you agree with that as far as an overall thought process?
Yes, I do agree with that. And it's making life difficult for me because the way I want to build is I want to pay up at quarterback and I want to pay up at tight end.
Me too.
And they go together. And that's the game I want to target. And it's kind of hard. So I do agree with you.
Is that Mahomes or is that Lamar with Kelsey?
It's Lamar.
Yeah, it's tough. Let's bring Bobby in. What's up, Bobby? We'll talk quarterbacks. We'll break it down position by position. This is the start, of course, of 2+ hours nonstop. Y'all don't have to leave the stream. We're here for the next hour or so. We hand it off to Ebeimfohr. The Crunch Time crew comes in. You got another millionaire winner. Andre comes in. Kristi as well. I believe TheLuuch will be hosting that, taking you all the way up to kickoff. Your general assessment, your screenshot, because Bobby, you were kind of playing poker with me. I couldn't really read you as far as if you liked this slate, you didn't like this slate.
I like some aspects of the slate. I think this chalk, Josh Jacobs, is something that's giving me a hard time because I don't know if I want to really play him at 40%. So, but his props, like if you look at his props, he's right in line there with Henry, who's like 2K more. So
rightfully so, they should be, right?
No,
yeah, his role is awesome. Like he's come a long way since the Hall of Fame game.
His role's fantastic, but I really don't want to play 40% of anyone in tournaments, like 40% chalk, right? Like that's kind of, as a tournament player, that's your first look to fade. In the past, Jacobs has kind of struggled in these situations as chalk, but this is kind of a new situation, so you have to kind of weigh that. That's where I'm at currently.
Yeah,
I'd like to remind Bobby of his 38 fantasy point game as chalk a couple weeks ago.
No, that's what I'm saying is like it's a new situation. this year he smashed his chalk, like you said. So now it's like, what are we doing, right?
When you say you want to fade it, are you saying I assume you're running like 150 or something like that today? Are you just Xing him out, or are you going to get like 5 or 10% just in case? Or are you just
right now I don't currently have him. Like
okay.
I built in, but I like in terms of building everything, he just ended up falling out for whatever reason. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just I like currently right now I'm on a fade.
Are you well over the field on Devontae Adams?
Yeah, I'm over the field on Adams. I have Renfro. I have Mac Hollins. I think Mac Hollins he's pretty interesting, right? Like it's one of those. It's a late game, and he's someone that they utilize more than you would think, and people aren't going to play him. So
how much is he?
He's like 4K or something.
Yeah,
he was questionable. He had the cute tag, so not like he's a great pivot off him. Adams is the pivot off him, right?
Yeah, and well, the thing is, like Foster Moreau is going to get played too, and this is just kind of an overarching conversation. But like the tight ends today, Otten's a cheapie there in Tampa Bay. Foster Moreau, you got the dude for Denver, Dulcich. You have Dalton Schultz expected back tonight for Dallas as well. So just a lot of cheap spots. Even Everett is pretty cheap on DK at 4K. It's kind of sort of the mid tier, but not really. Kittle's more of the mid tier type, I suppose. And then the big spends as far as Andrews and Kelsey. Are you trying to get over the field in those? I imagine you are in tournaments. It's hard.
Andrews, yes. I have a lot of K-Dot, and he's kind of the chalk that I'm just going to eat. The Bucs have been targeting these tight ends at a pretty high clip, so I think you can play them safely. I'm also pot committed on Brady, so I don't know. I swore myself off of him last week, and I'm back this week.
You're martingale-ing it, man. Eventually, it's going to hit, is the theory, right?
Eventually, maybe 5 years. Well, Brady prior to this year, but I don't know. This is a new situation, I feel like. So,
do you run it back with anybody on Carolina? Because that's not a fun. You know what their team total is right now? Take a guess. I'm not sure if you're looking at it. It's shocking.
It's probably like 16. What is it? 15? Oh, baby. So, no, I'm not running it back. I'm going to have some Brady overs and just hope they've just absolutely smashed them because we see an angry Tom situation.
Kirkwood.
What is Tom angry about?
He's got $1 billion.
To be like
9 championships.
Everyone says angry Tom. Angry Tom. Like, what this guy cannot be angry.
Life could be worse.
That's the other thing.
I mean, he's getting divorced and he's going to make money out of the deal.
He's going to make money. This is a very good point. Yeah.
Oh, she's Richard Giselle, I guess?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know what their prenup situation. I mean, he's fine either way. Money's not a concern, I don't think, right? I assume, he's going to be okay no matter what, I think.
I think so.
He's going to be fine. Yeah. By the way, 12.5, according to our projected it's a team total for Carolina. If you look at our lineups page, that is the number of points, which I can't imagine. I feel like I've never seen a number that low, but I guess it's justified, of course, if you guys have been in the hole or whatever. CMC has been traded away, some sort of combination of Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. Also in chat, they're mentioning the Pacheco situation in Kansas City, and I'm curious to your thought on that, Kirkwood, because Pacheco, according to Rappaport, consider the source, but even if it is true, like he's going to be drawing the start, I don't know what that means as far as drawing the start as running back, because it's still going to be a committee, like probably chopped up 3 ways to some extent. And what does he get? Maybe, who knows? It's just, I don't trust Kansas City as a general thought. And it's not like Pacheco is going to be a workhorse all of a sudden. And running back's pretty strong today. What are your thoughts on that report?
So it's basically you're getting CEH for 4,700 is the way I look at it. It's just a role. It's a role reversal, right? He's going to be the lead back. It's still going to be a split committee. They still have McKinnon, that depending on passing downs and depending on how the game script flows, it's also a passing offense. So it's like it's totally different than like Neon Dion Jackson the other week or any of these other plays. I mean, I don't see the appeal. I mean, could he fall in the end zone? Is he a talented runner? He looks pretty damn good. I'll give him that. And there is touchdown equity there potentially, but it is a passing offense, so I'm not excited about it. I don't.
And he's not a big he's not a big pass catcher, is he?
And it doesn't it's like okay. I would rather play Travis Etienne for 5,400, who's just 700 more. It's kind of in that range a little bit. It depends what it would get you, but so there's Etienne, then there's like a little bit more up there from that. There's Breece Hall, like these. There's Kenneth Walker is only 1,100 more with like the absolute, who just looked absolutely electric last week, and the Chargers is just an awesome matchup against the run. 22nd DVOA versus the run. Pete Carroll is just. Making it move, thinking about it. Yeah, just getting all ready to pound the rock with Kenneth Walker today.
And that's the game, the highest total, like 50.5 on the board, which again, that's something's got to be the highest by default, but that's not a game you must play. Is it Kirkwood? It's good, but you can see that game flopping, right?
Yeah, I mean San Francisco is a hell of a defense. I mean, basically the Bills games until the second half breakout kind of flopped, So, I mean, why couldn't this one flop again? I mean, it's a much tougher defense. San Francisco, I mean, it's not the best spot in the world, but I do like the game. I think it's good overall. So, I mean, you just got to take what the slate gives us. There's really not many other spots here that, there's the Seattle game who just absolutely busted it. Just, I'm bitter, completely bitter. I had like the greatest lineup going into I hit like Jamar Chase, Ramondre was fine. I had like all the nice pieces, right? Like surrounding my beautiful Geno stack with both Lockett and Metcalf, like ready to just print money. I had all the PMR and all the contests. Like I was in, and I was already up there. And then
he was probably the favorite in the 1,500 going into the late, I would say.
Yeah, and it was just that most tilting game I've ever watched. And
Lockett and Metcalf combined for what, 2 or 3 catches or something like that?
Yeah, it was pathetic. And Geno played fine. He was a great game manager. It was what they turned.
I feel like Geno looked good even though they didn't do anything. Geno impresses me. Like 32 years old, he's been in the league for so long. He looked fine. They just didn't. The game script just went awry, right? Like it wasn't.
Yeah, and it was just Donkey Cliff on the other side. It was just awful.
Yeah, good for Geno. It's impressive that he's hung around this long, and now he's risen and given an opportunity, and he looks better than a lot of these guys. The last guys that are playing.
All right, so we're searching for a cheap running back is basically what we're saying when we're talking about Pacheco.
Well, no. Okay, I was just asking your thoughts as far as Pacheco. I think we're searching for cheap receivers before cheap running backs because I think the running back position
opportunity cost.
Well, I don't know that necessarily. I just think it's running backs. It's like there's a much more appealing group at running back than receiver when you consider all the elements of price and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that. And I think that's kind of tied to quarterback. There's some quarterbacks I like, maybe 6 or 7, like the different degrees. But I feel much better about running backs this week than I do receivers, which I don't like as a general thought, but that's just what it is. But I did want to get Bobby's thoughts as far as that Pacheco situation. Is that a nothing burger? Is that worth talking about? I asked the chat for some value plays, and the chat gave me nothing. I don't know if the chat's alive or not, but let's see. The value plays they're throwing out there. Gallup, I mean, kind of sort. I'm talking like give me like a 4K receiver that you like. I like the one you threw out there, Bobby. For the Raiders, Hollins, he's 4.6.
Yeah, but Hollins, I think, is fine.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson, I think Corey Davis is going to end up seeing who is it? That corner, Surtain. So is that who it is? Yeah. So I think you can kind of take a shot at with Garrett Wilson with having Elijah Moore not really in the game plan. Renfro, I think he's perfectly fine. Romeo Dobbs, someone I'm considering. He's at 5K. Yeah. MVS, like this, the issue with this Chiefs team, and like you said, like Pacheco, who's it going to be outside of Kelsey? San Fran is the one team that I think will do like all they can not to let Kelsey be involved in this game plan as much as the Chiefs would like him to be. Now, I'm not saying go play Juju MVS stacks, but a guy like Pacheco, I think he's fine. McKinnon is interesting. You get a little revenge there. The Pacheco 4.7. McKinnon's 4.4. I don't know. I'm more bullish on the receipt like Debo in that game. I think Debo's a very solid play. He's just in no man's land in terms of pricing, and then he's the guy that he's going to go overlooked, and they're playing the Chiefs, like they're going to utilize Debo. Kittle's also in that group that I would probably be prioritizing from San Francisco. Yeah, but cheap receivers like Lockett's 5.6, like people might not want to go back to Lockett, although I was seeing.
He's got a ham. Are you concerned with a hamstring?
Oh, he's going to hammy? Maybe I'll knock him down. I didn't realize he had a hamstring injury.
I mean, those tend to linger. They just kind of pop up.
That isn't something I like with a wide receiver.
Look, I'm not privy to the medicals, just to kind of what we see in the interwebs, but I don't know how concerned we should be about that. And like Renfro was dealing with like a hip, I think, and he barely played half the snaps his last game. 55% of the snaps. I remember watching the game. I had some Renfro, and I was just like, why? I feel like he's not playing the game at all. Yeah, 55% of the snaps. Holland's at 95%. By the way, the chat's throwing out some names. This is what I'm talking about. Wan'Dale Robinson, who, yeah, he got a touchdown last week. Good for him. And theoretically, the snaps are going to come up. But, 25% snaps his very first game? Maybe it goes to 45. Maybe it goes to 50, which, okay, I guess we can talk. Nico Collins season? When is it ever Nico Collins season? And then Terrence Marshall. Have we just talked about Carolina? The internet's been trying to make this guy happen for like 3 years. They have a 12.5 total. Theoretically, Robbie Anderson gone. Like there's some opportunity, but man, this is the point I'm making here, Kirkwood. The salary savers stink or non-existent, but like somebody's gonna get there. I don't know who.
Well, I think those names are how you win Millie Makers. And now I don't speak from experience because I've never won a Millie Maker, but
some people speak from experience just because.
But you got to be early on these guys, and it makes perfect. These guys are playmakers, right? Like Wan'Dale Robinson looks like an absolute playmaker. Hasn't had the usage, but absolutely performed in the last game, and now you would expect they with their situation that they would utilize him a lot more going forward. Now there's also a big opportunity for Terrence Marshall, who's a playmaker, to actually do something. But is there a risk that he may not barely even play and barely get on the field? Yeah, I mean that's a risk, but you gotta be forward thinking and try to hit it before everybody else. So I like that where the people are thinking like that.
Bobby just said he's going onslaught. He's playing Tampa and no runbacks for Carolina. He doesn't care about.
Oh no, Can we talk about DJ? Can we talk about DJ Moore?
Terrence Marshall. I have some DJ Moore. You just got to accept that their floors are like so irrelevant if this goes bad. So. I have some Foreman. Wan'Dale, I got to get back into my pool. Wan'Dale, I had him in a couple. That was a nice call by the chat. I like Wan'Dale.
What do you think his snap count gets bumped up to?
It's going to get bumped up, and his price. What's his tag? Like 445.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it gets bumped up, I think there's room there for him. So I don't mind getting to Wan'Dale.
Nobody gets full snaps on the Giants. Like if you look at them last week, the highest receiver, 69%, Slayton.
That has to change though, because they have to start utilizing these guys more, and they're getting a little bit more. Like we've seen this. I don't know what they're doing at the wide receiver.
They're winning though, so maybe they don't think they have to. But like, of course, I think Wan'Dale's going to get more. I do agree with that. That's his first game, and
I think he's earned it.
Yeah, I mean he's got the pedigree. He scored a touchdown. We're talking about he had less snaps than David Sills and Richie Sims and Marcus John. All these guys are just, it's not a very strong depth chart. So he should work his way up through it pretty quickly, theoretically.
They have to.
I just want to. Can I just interrupt and help out our boy David Cruz, who came in here for the season-long advice question?
Oh yeah, go for it.
He wants to know whether he should start Travis Etienne or Jamal Williams. You came to the right place. We love season-long questions. Keep them coming. But I'm going to tell him, Jamal Williams, you got to start in this situation over Etienne today.
You're on Williams. I'm on Etienne.
I like Etienne, but like with
how is that helpful? We just 1-1.
The red zone equity. Yeah. See, I tried to help the guy. Now Bobby's arguing the other side.
I get why you would like. I guess in season long, yeah. If you're playing a head-to-head, Jamal's the only guy really there. So.
Yeah.
Keep them coming. Fire up those season-long questions. Let's get them going.
Deontay Foreman love, Dean? Any Deontay Foreman love at 4K?
Love? He's playable, right? I guess, but you don't love it.
No.
Do you think Foreman's ahead of Hubbard? Does it matter?
I think so. I think I'd rather Foreman than Hubbard.
Kirkwood?
I have no idea.
I can't believe this is what we're debating. Like, I'm having very little. We're not going to be. I'm having very little Panthers exposure, but
I'm trying to answer Stephen Long questions. I'm talking Brian Robinson now today, who I love actually as a DFS play. I think that's like one of the sharpest plays this week. Is Brian Robinson, but yeah, keep them coming. Let's go.
Yeah, and whatever questions you have, feel free to throw them up in there and fire them off in chat. Kindly that like button, do subscribe. Put those notifications on so you know we're going live, taking y'all straight up the lock. Let's knock out quarterbacks. Again, we talked about some quarterbacks that are not playing football today, but the ones that are on the main slate, the ones we can talk about, Lamar, of course, and Mahomes kind of in their own tier. We saw Burrow break out last week. Herbert, kind of a setback this year. The ADOT's really low for whatever reason, but the Seattle matchup should be nice. You got Carr and some potential leverage there, right? How much Vegas are people going to play, especially on DK, where Jacobs is going to be super popular? Prescott, Kirkwood, like you can take this both ways. Like he has, it makes your thumb feel really good. You see that we got the Lions on the schedule at home. That should make him feel a little bit better theoretically. But maybe it's just sort of like he doesn't push it too hard, doesn't have to because Detroit, is kind of a pushover and their defense is pretty solid. Maybe Detroit doesn't really push back so much, and then all of a sudden it turns into a Zeke game, which that's a lot of fun. And then there's angry Tom Brady, who, again, I agree with you, Kirkwood. I don't know why he's angry. He throws laptops in the sideline sometimes and, like, plays go awry. But, big picture, he probably shouldn't be too angry. He's having a good life. Yeah, Kirkwood, where are you starting as far as quarterbacks? Who's standing out for you?
I mean, there's two that stand out for me, maybe three. So the first one is Lamar. He's by far the best quarterback on the slate with the absolute, this guy can wreck a slate. I mean, he's had 3 subpar weeks in a row, but like before that, we're talking 48 and 43 fantasy points. We're talking over 100 yards rushing in each of those games. What's Cleveland's big weakness on defense? Well, it's been it's been everything, but their run is really bad. So I love Lamar in this spot, and he's not even going to be the chalk. He's going to get ownership, but he's not even going to you would think on this slate, he would be chalk, like coming into it if we had some value and whatnot. So he's my guy. It's just about the rushing upside. And I see some people in chat. Our boy Don Yeezy was saying that Big T and Crane were talking up Gus the Bus. I don't know how you get to Gus the Bus today. I mean, maybe he falls into the end zone, but they still have Justice Hill. They still have Kenyon Drake.
I get the back in that game.
But the reality is
if you count Lamar.
But the reality is Lamar's the best running back in the league, and Cleveland's 30th in DVOA versus the run. He's first in rushing yards for a QB. He's second in rushing attempts. He's third in rushing TVs. That's the problem, is that he hasn't had the big. He's only had the a max of one in each of his games. Those week 2 and week 3, but he certainly could get in the end zone a couple of times against this defense. And I like this game to go off. I think, and it's easy to pair with Amari Cooper on the bring back, or if you want to go Chubb, who I love, but it just gets hard building Chubb unless you go you don't play Andrews and you hope that maybe he's a little bit banged up and it's just more blocking today, even though that's wishful thinking. And you go to a guy like Bateman, but Bateman's been banged. I kind of wished that Bateman would be out, and then I would be all over Duvernay, who's got a squeaky wheel narrative. I don't know how he gets.
Is he squeaky wheel worthy? I don't know if he's squeaky.
Yeah, he shouldn't be squeaky wheel, but he's actually and Bobby will agree. He's really good. He's good. And I thought he was good last season, and when he was just primarily special teams return, he was always the talent is there for him. He's cheap, and he could be a good play today too at 4,500. But Lamar's my guy. Long story short, I also like Joe Burrow. Right? What happened last week? Cincinnati won, right? Cincinnati won, and what happened? They threw the ball 37 times, as opposed to giving Joe Mixon 37 2-yard runs. It's and you'd hope that they would do it again. And T. Higgins is healthier healthier than he was last week. Another week that, he should be healthier. Jamar Chase was great. Tough. He'll be shadowed this weekend, but like JSU was talking about
the chat's talking about the matchup versus AJ Terrell. How much do you care about?
Yeah, he's going to be shadowed. So I was just going to. So JSU made a great point on our pod. It's not like, yeah, getting shadowed stinks, right? Like when these guys are good, but like literally, it's also you got to look at the other way. He's going to have a one-on-one matchup, and this is Jamar Chase with a one-on-one matchup versus anyone is probably still pretty good and still has a pretty big upside. Like. So yes, it's just higher variance, really.
Bobby, what do you have as far as quarterbacks? I want a Prescott take. Where are you at officially as far as Dak? Because if he was healthy and playing, fine the last several weeks, I think he would look awesome. I'm a little bit concerned about him coming back, but you theoretically wouldn't think they would bring him back unless he was good to go. That would make no sense. Got to think long term, but. Your favorite quarterbacks, and I want an official Dak take because I go both ways on it. I can't quite figure it out.
I'm never a Dak guy. He's coming off the thumb. I worry about that. I also worry about that in regards to CeeDee Lamb, chalk. So I'm probably not going to have too much Dak. I think the interesting thing about quarterbacks this week is there isn't one outside of really Lamar, and you can make a case, and obviously Mahomes that have like these really inflated ceilings. So like Lamar, I think would definitely be in play. But the reason why I'm going back to Brady is because I think Brady has a similar ceiling to Burrow, Herbert, and all these guys that people are going to play. He's just going to be super low owned. And then look at his receivers. Godwin's right there at 6,300 under T. Higgins, who's going to be chalk. Mike Evans is at 68, who's right above 69, who's right above CeeDee Lamb at 68. I just think there's built-in correlation. You play the ought and play. You can overstack Brady in small field stuff. You can overstack Brady in large field stuff and just don't bring it back because, like we talked about, it's a 15-point team total for this Carolina team, but they could absolutely smash them. So that's what's kind of driven me to Brady. That's kind of where I'm at. I like Herbert. I like Geno. I think these guys are fine. I think Geno's going to be a little bit chalky, and you never really know. I think there's leverage though with Geno and these receivers if you're trying to get off Kenneth Walker. I think Kenneth Walker is likely bad chalk. It's a good spot. Everyone has this take that San Diego's horrible against the run. They have been in previous years, but they're like middle of the pack DVOA wise this year. So just is that somewhere you want to go? And then Pete Carroll is the one that can really mess this up. Because if you watch that game last week, they went away from Walker for up until he got there, but they went away from him for a good bit in that game to play DJ Dallas. And I think that's what a lot of these projection guys are kind of looking at when they see the usage from last week. I think Walker's tremendously talented, but Kirkwood talked about Brian Robinson. I think he's a good pivot. ETN, I think he's a solid pivot right in that price range. That's kind of where I'm at in terms of quarterbacks. It would be Lamar, Brady. I think you could go to Geno. You could also make a case for the thing I worry about with Atlanta is in Burrow is Atlanta just kind of takes the air out of the ball. And then their defense has been better than what's been advertised. And they get no pressure, but this Cincy O-line is terrible. So that maybe they get a little bit more pressure today. That's pretty much where I'm at. Probably Lamar, Brady, Geno. I seen one that was popping a little bit earlier in the week, and it makes me want to throw up in my mouth to say this, but Davis Mills at 5K, because you can correlate him with Cooks and with Dameon Pierce, and everyone's going to play the Carr side, and I just think that's something that you can utilize. It's just a MME play, obviously, but I think he's somewhat in play. People are going to play Carr this week too. This is like an old.
I don't know because people are playing Jacobs first, and do they want to play Carr with Jacobs?
I think they can because Jacobs is a 3-down back. When it's 3rd and 5, it's not there. It's still Jacobs in the backfield that they're letting. If it's a little bit longer than that, it's not going to be Jacobs. It's going to be White or whoever the pass get. But they give him enough opportunity in the passing game for it to be him. and then you're taking out Waller, so those extra targets are there. So like I feel like I'm talking myself into Jacobs, but like as a tournament player, 40% Jacobs just makes me cringe pretty much. I can't. It's tough to swallow.
By the way, Kirkwood, you asked for season-long questions in chat, and I did see one from Lil AC. Mariota or Pickett? Oh man, that's
the season long are rolling in. Keep them coming, guys. I'm going to go with Mariota there on that one.
Do you know who Pickett's playing? Out of curiosity.
Yeah, the Miami.
Okay, they're not in the main slate. I had to think about that for a second. I'm like, Pickett.
I would just still go for the rushing upside with Mariota and hope he really runs a lot, gets in the end zone, and the game environment against Cincy could be pretty good. So that's where I would go there. We got another one. We got Kirk, CEH, or Drake for our boy Phil. He said he's down bad, so we got to help him. We're going to go Christian Kirk there for that one. And I just want to make a couple points about Kenneth Walker. Bobby said that they're like middle of the pack DVOA around. They're 22nd DVOA versus the run. That's still good. They've also 4th most fantasy points per game allowed to running backs, which is good. There's also, he did have 71% of the snaps, which is good. 70% of the carries, which is really good. He ran more routes than DJ Dallas, which is big to me. So he ran 14 routes. DJ Dallas ran 9. So it's like he is, yes, DJ Dallas is going to cut in a little, but this is really good usage in a really good matchup. So I'm on board with Kenneth Walker. And even though JSU tried to get me back to go, run it back with Gino again this week, I just can't go there. I'm just bitter, and I can't do it.
We got to move on. We got to talk. You opened up Walker. Let's continue as far as your favorite running backs. Jacobs going to be super popular in DK to the prices. Different story on FanDuel where he's still fine, but like the price is a little bit trickier over there. Mixon probably the better play dollar for dollar. I love Eckler as the big spend, especially if Keenan Allen doesn't go. We'll see if he's going to go. They do have a bye next week. He's currently questionable. Probably going to work out before the game, but that's a 4:00 game, so actives and actives will not be out for that until later on today. Fournette, if you think Tampa's just going to kind of rout Carolina, Fournette looks pretty solid. There's a lot of other good running backs I think are in the conversation. Jones is pretty cheap on FanDuel. Breece Hall, for the Jets is kind of separating. There's a lot of options as far as running. And then, of course, players, Henry's not getting played. Number one pick in the in every season, speaking of season long, number one fantasy season long pick is back today, Jonathan Taylor. He's underpriced, and nobody's playing him. Just throwing it out there. He hasn't got there this year, but that's just how it's going. But finish your thoughts there as far as running back or ones you want to focus on, Kirkwood, and then we'll throw it to Bobby.
I mean, Eckler's the play for a really strong reason. I mean, he just is so good in the passing game. Like that's really what you're paying for. So it's Seattle. So first off, they're 21st DVOA versus the run. He has a over 20% target share for this offense. Herbert hasn't looked so great, and he's which has really helped Eckler. I guess it's probably from that rib situation, I would think. But he's also 4th in red zone touches. It's like he's got everything. So he just has that ceiling that you're looking for in PPR. So really like that play. Breece Hall, I love. If you want to play the other side, I'm going to be on the passing side today of Cincinnati. But if you want to play the other side, Mixon certainly could have a good game. He hasn't been great, but there's certainly some touchdown regression coming his way. Bobby said Dameon Pierce. I like that as the other side of Jacobs. I mean, let's talk about Jacobs really. I mean, he's great chalk. Like even if, but maybe not on Yahoo where it's like extremely expensive, but like on DraftKings, just so cheap. It's just his workload's been insane. His snaps counts have been insane. So he's got 89% of the snaps in week 4, 81% in week 5. He over the last 2 games has averaged 29.5 touches, and now he's against the 29th DVOA run defense of Houston in a game where they're favorites at home. So like it just makes perfect sense. Could he bust? Yeah. Could Devontae Adams go off? Could Foster Moreau steal some touchdowns? Yes. You should definitely play those angles in GPPs for sure. But he is good chalk. So
also, I just did mention, you mentioned Saquon Barkley, who's just got an awesome role for the Giants. He's basically their entire offense. He's going to go pretty unowned, just the way pricing and building lineups kind of works today. Your thoughts here, Bobby, and amongst the big spends. Mention Henry, mention Taylor, mention Barkley, like Fournette as well. Eckler, I think, is the most popular amongst the big spend. Him and Fournette kind of 1N, 1A, depending on where you're shopping. Do you have official take as far as your favorite big spend running back, and then, work your way down?
Yeah, so I'm playing a little bit of Henry and Taylor. I just think they're going to be lower owned, and I'm taking the ownership. I'm playing Eckler. I'll probably be below the field, and I'll be over on like Mike Williams. I understand that how condensed it is there, but maybe I'm probably getting too contrarian. But I don't mind these guys like Henry, like Fournette, like Chubb, right in that Eckler range. And I know Eckler's ceiling is what it is, but I just don't know if I'd rather take the chances on these other guys beating him. He's had 2 really solid weeks in a row, and for that reason, I'm kind of feeling like Taylor's got to get going. It's going to happen eventually. You can make the case for Chubb. Just first, they have a pretty good situation in terms of O-line, D-line rating. Like Cleveland's O-line is a lot stronger than the Baltimore D-line currently. Whether it's Chubb or Hunt, for that matter, no one's going to play Hunt. Hunt's 5'4", and the game script would kind of imply that it's Hunt. So he's another guy in that Brian Robinson, ETN range that maybe you could consider and not play Chubb. But definitely Henry and definitely Taylor, I'm going to be playing at a decently high clip. And Eckler, I'll be under the field.
Pierce or Hall? Who do you prefer amongst those two?
Pierce I'm going to have more Pierce and Hall than just because they're right in the range of Jacobs, and if Jacobs is hitting 40%, I'm not at this point, I'm just not playing it. If you think about it, it's not the same situation as Stevenson last week, but Stevenson got there in a way that he got lucky to get there, right? So,
well, he also got unlucky to be in the position to get lucky to get there. he also got stuffed at the goal line 3 times, a bunch of times right before that, and win the game. So he was busting, but he should have had a bigger game. But then he did bail out everybody at the end with the touchdown where he probably shouldn't even have been in the game. But I loved it personally.
Anybody playing Zeke today? I mean, if you're ever going to play Zeke, this feels like the spot to do it.
I wanted to touch on that. So this feels like the spot where he's just going to fall in the end zone a couple times. But so basically, but the way I want to play this, I mean, I want to play Pollard. So
me too.
I mean, so it's Detroit, right? Who's the 31st DVOA versus the run, gives up massive big plays at will. Who's the guy, who's the back in this offense that you think of big play, the guy that's going to hit a 40-yard Yahtzee touchdown? It's not Zeke anymore. Those days are long gone.
No,
right? Zeke could be a troll game for Zeke. Sure, he could fall in the end zone. He will get red zone touches, and he could obviously get in there and do it. But I want big Tony Pollard plays at no ownership.
And it's 60-40 as far as the split. So Zeke's at the goal line and he's getting more touches. But that's how you win tournaments, right? I think Pollard's an awesome millionaire player. For play for the Moneymaker or something like that. I love it. In my contest where I'm playing 500 people, I'm having a hard time getting there, but I like it. It's just, I'm not sure.
Running back
1%
strong. The running back's such a strong position. That's what makes me very worried about playing Jacobs at 40%. We haven't seen this all year. I'm on the Pollard play too.
Yeah, for especially the big contest, you're probably supposed to be underweight on that. That's more of a DK thing as far as the ownership. He's going to be owned on FanDuel, but not at 40%. We got to move on because again, we got people knocking on the door. They're going to be coming in soon enough. Ebeimfohr is going to be taking over. Crunch time taking you all the way up the lock. Hit that like button there in the chat. Do subscribe. Do turn on those notifications. Hey, you know what? If you guys have a hot take, if you want to win, you see all these fabulous tools that producer Steve is showing off. You can use them at your own leisure. The optimizer, you get the projections, and you get all the sports: football, baseball, basketball, hockey, everything with the exception of NASCAR. If you correctly predict, if you give me this nail it, a bold proclamation in my tweets, I'll reward you with 1 month free. Can't put a price on it. 1 month free of RotoGrinders Premium. Just respond to that tweet. It is in the chat right now on YouTube. And if you bink it, hey, the bar is set. A couple weeks ago, somebody hit De'Ami Brown going for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that happened. See if you can
That was
try
an
and top
insane
that.
call, by the way.
Dude, they cheated. They're like, that's the Jack 4 poker hand. Like, there's something we got to have we got to have Joey Ingram do a deep dive into that.
He's doing a 24-hour stream on it right now, I believe.
Yeah, there's cheating. There's cheating there somewhere.
Overzet.
I lost too much of that. Right?
We have Overzet, dude. Isn't he like the Joey Ingram of DFS content? That's what he's going for.
I can see that. That seems like a reasonable comp. That seems reasonable. Let's do you want to get your defensive takeout now? Because we're not gonna have time for it later, Bobby. I know you love your defenses.
I don't have a lot of great defensive takes this week. Falcons, I think, are in play. Jags, I think you can make a case for. I don't know. I don't have a ton of defenses just off the top of my head this week.
Jets are going to be crazy chalk.
Jets are going to be – I'm playing the Jets even though they're chalky. I'm just going to cap them. I see no reason why not to. The issue is they could just hand this ball off the Broncos, and there's really no – like, I definitely played the Jets, and, like, if they get 10 points, I'm fine with that, because I can just see them giving it to Jamal Williams as much as possible. Even being down 14 points, they could still hand it off. Just not to let Ripien throw. But yeah, I don't mind the Jets.
The Bucs, if you have all the money, of course, are interesting.
Yeah,
I like Dallas as well as kind of an onslaught situation. I like that Dallas defense. I think they get a pile of sacks, and especially if they get a lead, as we suspect they will, then all of a sudden Detroit becomes one-dimensional. And it is still Jared Goff. I know that offense has been kind of humming, but Swift's still out there. I'm on Ra. The Sun God is not fully healthy, even according to him, like 90%, he said. I think Dallas defense is pretty interesting, too, as a pivot away from Tampa. If Tampa's going to be spent, especially on FanDuel, where you can get Tampa a little bit easier. You have a quick thought, Kirkwood, as far as defense?
Yeah, so I like the Jets. It's just they're the cheapies. Like, you just take it and move on. The one that I think is like really like out there that I really like, I like Washington. So I think Brian Robinson is like the sharpest play this week because they're trying to get him going. Green Bay's awful against the run. Green Bay's been awful in and people they just don't realize how bad they've been playing, but like correlate that with the Commanders defense and at 2,500. So that's my cheapie play against Green Bay, who's just looked bad. I know they're putting a lot of weight into trying to fix their offensive line, but like offensive line, when they're like moving people around and putting them in new position stuff, like these guys definitely can let down and like let up a bunch of sacks here, and then Washington can bring some pressure. So that's my cheapie.
Do you think he'll be utilized in the passing game?
Who?
Robinson?
Well, a little bit.
If they're behind, if they're behind, obviously they go to McKissick, but McKissick's down there at 4,900 and no one's going to play him. But I just don't. I think I'm more worried about him cutting in to Robinson.
I'm going on for the other game. I'm going for the other game script.
Yeah. I think Rodgers is pretty sneaky in this situation. I think Dobbs grades out well. Lazard, Tanyan, Aaron Jones, if you want to play these guys, Dylan. So I'm on the other side of Kirkwood. I get Green Bay winning the game. So,
what do you have, Bobby, as far as receivers? Lamb's probably going to be the most popular. Metcalf looks pretty good as far as receivers. Higgins, I heard some love earlier in the show from Kirkwood from Higgins, given the old Chase is the tougher matchup thought process. Maybe the Bengals keep throwing. But again, we're without a lot of good receivers. I love Adams as like a pivot away from Jacobs. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it's a salary thing, and it's kind of tricky to make work. But if you can make it work, have at it. What do you have as far as receivers?
Yeah, so my two favorite receivers are Debo and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Outside of the Tampa Bay guys, who I'm going to be playing pretty heavily in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And they're right around that CeeDee Lamb chalk, all those guys, and the Higgins chalk. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm not playing as much chalk as I probably should be. I got to find a chalk guy that can go overweight. Maybe Kirkwood's right on the Seattle on Walker. I was just looking around the industry, and everyone seems to think that, like, projections-wise, he's the worst chalk on the slate. And that's what makes me a little skeptical. But the guy has, like, some shake to him. I really liked what I seen and when he was out there. So I don't know. In terms of receiver, it'd probably be Evans, Amon-Ra, Debo, Adams, and Godwin for me.
And your favorite spend down receiver?
I might just play Carter.
What if Allen's playing? Then you're really screwed, or what?
What'd you say?
What if Keenan Allen plays?
So if Keenan Allen plays, then I'm in a little bit of trouble. Who's in that 4 o'clock slate in that 4 o'clock window?
So there's 4 games: the Jets and the Broncos, which isn't very appealing, but maybe you can get a cheap Jet receiver.
Yeah, so maybe I can get to Wilson or Corey Davis. Like I really don't. I think Corey Davis, the wide receiver matchup versus defense. I don't really care much about that. I think Zach Wilson's going to still try to force it to Davis when he can.
Carter's 3.7. There's really nobody. I'm looking at like Hollins is 4.6.
So Matt. I think Matt. I would try some way to get to Matt.
Nico Collins 4.2.
I don't think Keenan Allen plays though. Like they have no reason to play Allen. Like unless we've gotten news in the last hour.
Unless he's healthy, that would be the reason. If they're like
they have the bye. They have the bye next week if they really want.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is if he's fully healthy, then it doesn't matter.
They don't want to play.
Yeah, like if he's like still lingering and doing it, it makes perfect sense to like shut him down and wait for give him another 2 weeks or whatever. But
who's standing out for you, Kirkwood? Who are like some of
your all right? So let's talk about CD Lamb real quick because he's the mega chalk. Detroit, great matchup, 31st year pass, but like the run game could steal it. I get it. So the argument for him, he's the only player to have a minimum of 8 targets in every single game this year. He's got a massive target share, 33 1/3%. Detroit is awful against deep passing, and CD leads Dallas this year in deep targets. However, Gallup is the deep target guy on Dallas when he's healthy. Right. Like, so why aren't he's getting steamed a little bit. I've heard other people talk about him, but but Gallup is such the obvious leverage play in that situation. But I wonder how much ownership he's going to get, but I don't think it'll be too much. So Gallup is definitely on my radar here. Debo, this is our last week to play Debo, be honest with you, unless like prices start coming down because like McCaffrey's just going to eat in this offense and just take away. He'll be decent, but like this is also a great game for environment for him. So I like Debo today, but I love T. Higgins. So Jamar Chase is going to be shadowed. Could he still win the one-on-ones? Yes, but like it just makes so much sense to just go to T. Higgins, who's finally not listed on the injury report, right? And that's huge. So I think this is definitely going to be a Higgins game. He is kind of popular for sure. He's going to be somewhat chalky, but I don't think he'll be popular enough.
Chat's talking about Sammy Watkins. He's still minimum 3K expected to play today versus Washington. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, he's 3K.
I have him in my player pool for what it's worth.
Is he expected to be on the field a good bit, or what do we have? Any reports on that? Coming back, he hasn't played since week 2. I know he's only 3K, and like, what do you really? You need one big play. That theoretically can happen, but all right. By the way, Jeremy Fowler saying that Keenan Allen is trending positive to play this week. ESPN reporter. Thanks, Izzy, for dropping that in chat.
Let me get Carter out of there then.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, nothing official. That's a later game. You won't know until an hour and a half before the 4 o'clock game starts, but just keep an eye on that. We are up against the clock. I want to get you guys' thoughts as far as tight ends. We talked, look, if you can make it work, if you can correlate your quarterbacks, obviously Andrews and Kelsey are awesome. But amongst the cheapies, and Everett is kind of on that conversation, not really because it's like in the middle, but Bobby Otten, 2.7, Tampa Bay. Dulcich is 2.5. Foster Moreau is 2.8. Who's your favorite amongst these cheapies?
I'm on Otten. I'm playing him at a very high clip. I know it's the punt tight end. Everyone usually X's him. Just makes a lot of work in my lineup. So it's going to be Otten for me. They've been passing to tight ends pretty significantly the last couple of weeks. You're taking Braid out of the mix. I'm on Otten. I think Otten's a good player too, just overall.
I should have Schultz in the conversation too. Schultz expected to be healthy today for Dallas also as far as a cheap tight end. Kirkwood, what do you have as far as tight ends?
What if I told you there was a guy for 3,500 who has a touchdown in 2 of the last 3 games, is under 3,600 in salary, and is in a great revenge game matchup? Would that interest you, Dean?
I mean, yeah, Triple H. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. But Dulcich is an easy play today, I think. I mean,
is it?
He didn't have great usage.
He's not going to get big savings. Otten's right there, and Moreau's
2,500
right
though. I mean, both of them. He's 2,500. I mean, the writing's on the wall.
What's the difference?
Well, the thing is they just made such, like, when they healthy scratched Alberto, they just made it clear like he's going to be their tight end. They want him. And they talked him up forever and ever, and he gets the touchdown in his first game, and he's still 2,500. It's like, and they're going to need like big guys. He's a big boy, and they're going to need big short targets in this game with Rippon. Do
you remember his dad?
I don't.
Yeah, his dad won a Super Bowl. Mark Rippon. Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Dulcich. I was like,
I don't know Dulcich's dad. Yeah, I couldn't speak on that. If you don't want to mess with such things as picking the cheap tight ends, you guys can play over at Stat Hero. In case you haven't heard, Stat Hero, it's a unique fantasy sports platform that allows users to compete only against the house, not against other players. You're not playing against Bobby. You're not playing against Kirkwood. You participate in a head-to-head style contest for Stat Hero. They're going to provide a lineup that you have to beat with your own, as well as pick'em style contest. You should also check out the Big Dime League. It's a season-long leaderboard NFL contest with up to $50,000 in prizes. We have a nice, sweet deposit bonus for y'all as well. Use the promo code GRINDERS, GRINDERS, 50% deposit bonus, up to $250. Jump into the action today. Again, that is at Stat Hero. Before we step aside and make way for Beimfohr and the crew, and again, there's no reason to leave this stream. The stream's going to be continuous. We're going to step aside. They're going to step in. Crunch Time Crew is going to come in later as well, taking y'all all the way straight up the lock. Do hit that like button, but you're waiting for Beimfohr. But I do need Kirkwood. You go first. Bobby, you're going to see him and raise him. Your favorite stack, your favorite bold call, a proclamation, whatever it is. What's taking down all the American dollars today?
I mean, I'm trying to pay up for Lamar, and I'm debating on whether if I could potentially use Bateman or have to go Andrews again, but. Regardless, that's the way. And if I could really get a lineup that I like, I would run it back with Nick Chubb. But because no one ever plays Nick Chubb, and he just has like slate breaking ability, and he's he does not a projection play, so he never gets the ownership. But when he goes off, he goes off. So could he bust? Absolutely. But I don't really care about that. It's like it's GPP. It's like I want the ceiling. So that, or I could run it back with Amari Cooper, obviously.
I don't know if it's a positive or negative. The chat's talking about Dulcich, and they're saying, but no Russ. Like, is that good or bad? I'll just take quarterback, whoever's hiding behind door number 2, which happens to be Brett Rippon, the way Russ is throwing these days.
He's 2,500 and he's going to get usage in this game, and they're not going to.
They might throw it like 12 times.
Yeah, more. I think Foster Moreau.
It's possible, but it's like
better.
He's 2,500. We're not doing it. I think Foster Moreau is probably a worse play, to be honest with you, but. I mean, there's too many options on this offense. We got, I get it from like the leverage standpoint, but he's going to be chalkier than Dulcich.
Also, 20-mile-per-hour sustained winds in Denver today. Stronger gusts as well. I'll drop Chief Meteorologist Kevin Ross weather report there in chat. But what do you have? Give us a strong take here, buddy. We got to finish strong before we step aside and make way for Beimfohr and the crew.
All the Bucks. Tom's going to be on the winner this week.
Is he going to be finally happy? He'll be a reason to smile?
I hope so. He throws 3 touchdowns and 385 versus a team that can't stop a nosebleed.
Evans or Godwin, your favorite pairing piece?
Evans has a squeaky wheel narrative.
All right. Brady has squeaky wheels. What is it, 49 these days? All right. We got to step aside. We got to go. We do appreciate y'all watching. Beimfohr is going to step in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and drop that Twitter, that my tweet and chat again. If y'all want to have a bold call, you hit the bold call, get yourself 1 month free of RG Premium. I'm going to drop it in the chat as I step aside for Kirkwood. For myself, for Dean, that's DFS_Almanac on the old Twitter. We'll drop it in the chat in a second. And former millionaire winner, Bobby Gomes. Appreciate y'all watching. Stick around. Ebeimfohr is going to jump in right now.
We're here back in the Fantasy Bar with your pints and picks for Week 7, presented by BetMGM. Make sure you head over there and use promo code GRINDERS for a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Now sit back, grab your favorite pint while giving my favorite picks for Week 7. All right, we split them last week with Cleveland and Atlanta, but that means we've hit 5 of our last 6 here in the video, so let's stay hot. Got a couple underdogs for you here this week. First pick, we are rolling with the Houston Texans, +7 in Las Vegas. Now, Houston been competitive in every single game this season. Home, away, it has not mattered here. In fact, they have covered 4 of their last 5, and they've been good in the AFC, covering 6 of their last 7. Now, Vegas on the other side, just 2-3 against the number so far this season. We also have some huge betting slits in our favor here. 36% of the bets coming in on Houston, but a whopping 88% of the money. I'm with the money on this one. I'm grabbing Houston here and the points. All right, next underdog for you. We are rolling with Washington, +4.5. Now, this one's been bet down, but I still think there is value here on Washington. Green Bay, what have they done? I wrote about this in my Scores and Odds article last week on my Jets bet. They have not done anything to be 4.5-point favorites here on the road. And I know Washington going from Wentz to Heineke, I don't think you're going to see a huge drop-off. In fact, I think this may spark this offense. We also have Aaron Rodgers dealing with a thumb injury. Washington, the 11th ranked defense, according to DVOA, while Green Bay on the other side, worst run D in football, 32nd against the run. I think you're going to see a lot of Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson in this one. Green Bay has only covered twice in their last 8 and only once in their last 5 on the road. Again, the split's in our favor here. Betting about split, money 82% in favor of Washington. I'm rolling with the money here. Give me Washington and the points at home. All right, that'll do it here for Week 7. Remember, promo code GRINDERS at BetMGM for a risk-free bet up to $1,000. For scoresandodds.com, for RotoGrinders.com, for BetMGM, I am Beer saying salut, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck with your bets. We'll see you next week.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to Week 7 GPP Final Takes here on RotoGrinders.com. I am your host, as usual, Erik Beimfohr. You can find me on Twitter at Erik Beimfohr. I am joined by my good friend, Spike Week partner, Rob Coakley at KingCoakley. Very excited to do this show. Rob, before I pass it over to you, for anybody that hasn't watched this show before, it's a little bit different maybe than every other DFS show. We're not going to go position by position. We're not going to go game by game. We're going to kind of bounce through some of the most critical elements of the GPP slate. If you want cash game questions, this is probably not your place. You can ask them. We'll try to hit them as best we can. The folks after us can always hit any questions that we do not get. I will try to hit every question in the chat as quickly as I can. But Rob, this slate feels tough, because I struggle to find super duper strong pivots. I'm pretty gal brain kind of guy. I can usually like pipe dream about some really bad stuff. You know me from the season long space, stacking up Jets and Giants and all these dusty teams. But I'm really struggling to get away from a couple of the key spots today. How are you kind of feeling generally about the slate?
I was like, okay, so RotoGrinders needs me to come on and talk about this absolutely disgusting slate for my first time on a Sunday. Like, that checks out. So yeah, there's some stuff that I was galbraining earlier that I'm starting to walk back a little bit, but you know how I am like with these things. I'm really big into these elite quarterbacks, and we don't have all the elite quarterbacks on this slate.
Yep.
So it's, do I want to lean into the 2 that we have, 3 that we have, or do I want to like Galbraith in that position is where I'm kind of like trying to figure out right now.
Yeah, I think we've gotten so spoiled from the elite quarterbacks for this whole entire season. And now Mahomes is pretty much in that tier, but he's not quite the same fantasy asset, right, as Josh Allen, as Lamar Jackson, just because of his legs. He's still an elite quarterback, but we really just have those 2 up top, Lamar and Patrick Mahomes. And I do think that's not necessarily where the slate starts, because I think there's some other kind of super chalky, but yet super strong plays at some other positions, particularly running back. But kind of like you said, where you are you going to force Lamar in mostly? I would say is I do really like the Chiefs stack. I'm sure we will get to that plenty later. But kind of, are you going to force Lamar in, or because we know what we're going to get with Lamar, right? You're going to get a requisite floor that feels really good, and this is a good matchup for him, I think. But you have to pay for it, and you're paying for that ceiling. But if he doesn't hit that ceiling, you can save multiple $1,000s on both sites, really. A little bit less on FanDuel probably, but you can really save a lot of money and jam maybe some of these other really high upside plays at other positions. And so how are you kind of feeling about Lamar? What's your kind of stance? How are you approaching him?
Yeah, so like there's a few concerns with Lamar, right? We had Mark Andrews injured all week. We were worried about, was he actually going to play? Bateman's still a little bit banged up. So who are we stacking Lamar with? Are we still going to Andrews? Is the injury concern there? Or do you want to get like really different and stack him with maybe still Isaiah Likely and save some salary that way? And when we have these elite quarterbacks, like we're worried about Lamar putting 40 on us. We're worried about Allen putting 40 on us, like Hurts if we don't have them. We really only have to worry about that with 2 guys this week. So it's like one of those weeks that you can pivot away, but like how far do you want to pivot away? I was building Heineke teams at the beginning of the week just because it's 5K, right? And just to see, because 5 years ago, we would be locking these guys in. We'd be locking Davis Mills in. We'd be locking Heineke in. And it almost feels like a throwback slate in that respect, that maybe we can do that. But, then you have your Joe Burrow. So like, it's pretty crazy that with all this being said, Tom Brady is still bringing in a ton of ownership against Carolina. And I think that's one play that I am definitely fading today.
I think Zigorous asked, do you think Dak is going to be big this week? I will say I tagged Dak. I feel the same. Let me take a step back. I feel the same way as you about kind of this slate. And I'm going back and forth because I had really strong feelings kind of earlier in the week. Whether it be about, certain games, certain quarterbacks, certain plays, whatever. And it's not that I'm walking them back. Some of them have picked up some steam and ownership. And then some, as I start to build lineups, I do kind of see it all kind of does come back to this quarterback thing. We'll get to some of these other positions, but to be clear, I'm probably going to be eating some of this running back chalk in particular with the Josh Jacobs and the Kenneth Walkers and such of the world. And so when you start to build out lineups, I really do like Dak. But if you play Dak, you play CD, you play Ken Walker, you play Josh Jacobs, right? God forbid, then you play another, you play the Jets defense. It's like you're playing a borderline cash game team in tournaments. And so that's kind of where I come back to. When I keep building teams, something that keeps sticking out to me about quarterback is almost like it's the last thing I'm putting into my lineup, which is kind of sometimes true, but a lot of the times, like you'll start with a game stack or whatever, right? This week, I'm kind of putting together pieces, correlating pieces, seeing what fits at wide receiver. Do I need to punt tight end? Can I go up and get Andrews? Like you said, right? What does the Andrews team look like? And then let's put Lamar in. How bad does that look, right? What kind of punts do I have to have in there to make that fit? Because you mentioned Andrews. This is going to be one of the slates where I don't think Andrews is going to get played very much. There's a lot of cheap tight ends, and everybody loves their cheap tight end. And so just playing around with rosters has been the big thing that I've been doing. I am still very into the Dak thing. And we'll get to kind of some of those other Cowboys plays that I like that can maybe make a little bit of a difference. But it's tricky with quarterback. And I do really think you can do kind of what you said, a little more old school approach this week, because you're really just fading two guys, like you said. If Lamar, even if Lamar goes for 25, even if he goes for 30, it's fine. You're fading the 40, 45, right? You're fading the double bonus 4 touchdown game or whatever. As long as Mahomes doesn't throw for 404 or 5, you can get away with these cheaper guys. Now, is that Dak or Burrow, which are probably my 2 favorite kind of pivots, just from a general, a macro sense, but you're not saving a ton on those guys. You can go down. I think you can play, like you said, you can go totally punt it off down low. You can play Trevor Lawrence, who outside of one game against the Eagles, he struggled against the Eagles, which is fine. And he struggled against the Texans. He had a terrible game against the Texans, but he looked awesome last week. That was the best game I think I've ever seen him play. He lit up the Chargers. I think you can play him. I think you want to get super crazy and play Mariota to London or something like that, just because he runs. Mariota threw 12 passes and scored 24 fantasy points last week. And I just think you can do some of those things that I didn't necessarily think at the beginning of the week, just because quarterback is so funky this week. And I'm not playing Tom Brady, to be clear. Maybe he'll dunk on me, but I'm not playing Tom Brady. So I'm looking at all these other guys.
Lawrence is the guy I was going to bring up because he's 5,700, and it just feels like, all right, 5,700. We know he's not going to run for 2 touchdowns again, most likely. Like, that's a pretty outlier game for him, but he could throw for 3, and his stacking partners are real nice all the way down to ETN. As people know, I'm not a ETN guy, but when he's as cheap as he is in DFS, that's a whole different ball game. I really like looking at like a Lawrence, Kirk, ETN, and I don't even need a bring back on that stack. I mean, why do you need to bring back that Jacksonville stack personally?
And you can play Saquon. If you do want to play a bring back, you can play Saquon. I think if you're 150 maxing even on FanDuel more so, but Wan'Dale Robinson is like 5K on FanDuel, 5,500 on FanDuel. I think I have DraftKings up here where he's 4,500. It's a little bit trickier, but he was the focal point of the passing game while he was in last week. Now he only ran like 30% of the routes, so that's the problem. But he got 4 targets on 30% of the routes, and they didn't really throw very much. I think he is like one of these kind of off the wall wide receiver type plays that I'm considering, right? The Jags, this game is actually a really interesting, fascinating game for tournaments because nobody's really excited about either of these two teams, but the Jags have shown plenty of upside. Both Lawrence, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, even Marvin Jones, Travis Etienne, if he can steal more of the work from James Robinson, can absolutely have a big game here. And then we know Saquon. I mean, we don't really have to talk about Saquon. The one of the only workhorses left in the entire NFL in a good matchup. And then I do think eventually Wan'Dale is going to be a play. And so I'm thinking through him again. I think a little bit more on FanDuel where it's actually a little tighter on FanDuel. It's tough to fit some, if you want Lamar or something like that, it's a little tougher to fit on FanDuel. And I need kind of a punt wide receiver. I think he's really interesting, like pairing him with a Lawrence stack or just pairing him with Zay or Kirk or whatever. Right. I think that again, you don't have to play Wan'Dale. You don't have to play the Lawrence stack, but I think those are some of the guys I'm trying to think through because like at the top, the question was like, is this Dak week? Yeah, I kind of think so, but so does everybody. So does everybody else. Everybody's playing CD, right? People are going to play some Lions guys, especially now. Again, DeAndre Swift is out. I'll try to hit on some of the actives and inactives as we roll through here. And Josh Reynolds is active in that game, and DeAndre Swift is inactive in that game. Bateman is also active for just if we were worried about that for Lamar stacks. And so that game really is kind of the thesis of how I'm thinking through the slate, right? Do I figure out a way to make my Lamar stacks, Cowboys stacks, whatever? Do I find a way to make them kind of off the wall, right? Am I fading Josh Jacobs or Ken Walker or something? Or am I just playing some of those chalky guys and pivoting to, look, the Giants defense does not scare me at all. They haven't played, and I was going through this yesterday. They haven't played anybody. It's like Baker. They played Baker. I think they played Rodgers. They played Justin Fields, right? So like their numbers look really good. They played all the worst offenses. in the NFL. And so it just feels like kind of a sneaky spot for Trevor Lawrence. What's another kind of game? Go
real quick on the Trevor Lawrence thing. Everyone's punting at tight end. So if you did like a Lawrence double stack, what are your thoughts on bringing Bellinger back as the tight end? That's going to be like real low owned and a cheap tight end that no one's on.
I'm glad you brought that up. Like in terms of kind of themes of the week, let me go to tight end really quickly, because like you said, everybody is going to punt tight end. When we go to projected ownership, right, we do have Mark Andrews up here. I'm not even sold that that's going to be that high. When we have Foster Moreau without Darren Waller, we have K. Dotton without Cam Brate, we have Greg Dulcich with Alberto, moving on to the XFL. There's just all these cheap guys, and there's other guys. What I really like doing is one of those things. If I'm whether I'm playing kind of chalky guys or not in my tournament teams, I love bringing along that tight end from that game that I'm stacking. It could be with my quarterback, right? So if you're playing Dak, one of my favorite things this week, you see all the way down here, Dalton Schultz is one of my favorite tight ends this week. You mentioned Daniel Bellinger. I think you can play Evan Ingram as well in that game. Hayden Hurst is a touch higher in ownership, but I'm not super worried about Hayden Hurst's ownership, right? Gerald Everett, Robert Tonyan, David Njoku, all these guys, Noah Fant, they're all playable. They all have upside in tournaments, but just because they're not the shiny new toy who's sub 3K, right? Moreau, Ott, and Dulcich are sub 3K. These other guys are not that much more. It's almost $1,000. Like, who really cares about the price difference? But it's a huge ownership difference. And if you hit on that game and like say Dak brings Schultz along, or Lawrence brings Ingram along, or like you said, Bellinger is the bring back on that stack, I think that's one of the outside of kind of quarterback is my last thing. I think that's one of the other big elements for me this week. I feel comfortable playing the Ken Walkers of the world because I'm going to go to Schultz, or I'm going to go to Ingram or Bellinger instead of Moreau, right? Dulcich, Otten.
We say all this and we know what's happening this week, right? It's Kyle Pitts week.
Oh,
like,
God, don't say
for
that.
sure. For sure. Like he's coming out, he's scoring 2 touchdowns or something. And then, all my homies hate tight ends. And now Kyle Pitts is going to be the guy again, all of a sudden.
And this is, so Jonathan brings up, I don't want you see me moving on. I don't want to talk about Kyle Pitts. I do think Kyle Pitts is playable, because another game we'll talk about in a second after this, after hitting Jonathan's question. Are we sure that Prescott's going to be, all good in his first game? No, I'm absolutely not sure that he's going to be all good in his first game back. I will say it's the Lions, and I'm not sure. I mean, Carson Wentz hasn't been all good in 6 years, and Carson Wentz dropped like 35 fantasy points on the Lions defense. It's more of a Lions thing even than it is a Dak thing. It also helps the Cowboys are just all coming together at the same time on offense. Gallup is back and healthy, and Schultz. The Schultz thing, I don't want to keep belaboring Dalton Schultz for a long time, but last year, this was a dude, in the 5Ks or something, maybe call it on DraftKings, even higher on FanDuel. And I saw somebody ask about FanDuel. We'll definitely be covering FanDuel, I promise. Schultz is 3,600, was a better fantasy tight end than all these schmucks that are being played here at the top, right? Foster Moreau is fine. K. Dotton, whatever, is fine. Greg Dulcich is fine. Greg Dulcich is Brett Rippon is throwing him the ball. Like, Dalton Schultz was the tight end 4 or something like that last year in all fantasy. He's 3,600 against the Lions, and he's like leverage. He's like for giving you leverage in tournaments. So he's probably one of my favorite plays. But to Jonathan's point, I also don't think you have to jam this Cowboy stack. I think it's probably my favorite stack, but it's not any form of a sneaky stack or anything at all. So that's why I like the Schultzes, the Gallups. Again, like we talked about, bringing your tight end along in your game stats, I think is big. Yeah. Thank you, Jesse.
Do you think that this week more so than ever, people are leaning into chalk a little too much? Like, because I just hear everyone saying like everything is good chalk. And I look at the Josh Jacobs thing where clearly against Houston, the matchup's great. He's going to be heavily owned. But isn't this the perfect spot to fade Jacobs and play Devontae Adams with Waller out? Get major leverage with probably the best wide receiver in the league. I think that's what my head keeps going to for this game.
That's a really interesting, again, another kind of game stack, right? And there's fairly easy bringbacks on the other side. There's a couple different ways that this can work, right? So it's Josh Jacobs. I know he's been awesome, but he's been prone to a stinker or two over the course of his career. And Brandon Bolden is still playing. I'm definitely not, advocating that Brandon Bolden's going to take over this backfield. But if something goes wrong in this game, Dameon Pierce rips off 2 long touchdowns, right? So you play Dameon Pierce instead of Josh Jacobs. Now it's Derek Carr time. Derek Carr to Devontae Adams. You can probably play Foster Moreau in that because nobody's playing a Carr Adams stack. So you can play Foster Moreau in that if you want. You can play Hunter Renfrow in that if you want. You can play, somebody mentioned Mac Hollins. Jesse mentioned Mac Hollins. You can bring Mac Hollins in as a cheap wide receiver. There's a lot of different ways to play this game because the Raiders defense is also not very good. It's like meh, but it's totally attackable by the Texans. So again, this is another one of those where it's like, how can I leverage this field? Like you said, I do think the chalk is like excellent today, but that doesn't mean that like it's a stone, right? That Josh Jacobs isn't 4K. He's 6,500. And like, if he doesn't score 25 fantasy points, you can win without him. Same thing with Ken Walker, etc. So I do think the chalk is going to be really heavily owned today because it's just a handful of guys that are so glaringly not mispriced for sure, but more mispriced than the rest of the field, if that makes any sense. Because it's like
definitely
a workhorse against the Texans, a young superstar running back against the Chargers, who just literally you and I could run for at least like 70 yards on the deep. They'd let you run. It's the spots are like, right, Dak coming back, and so all the Cowboys are cheap against the Lions. It's like these spots are so good, so everybody's really leaning into it.
I think especially on FanDuel, Devontae Adams is getting a little overlooked. It's even easier to play him on FanDuel. But like you said, everyone wants to play CeeDee Lamb. They want to play Jamar Chase, which who doesn't? But Debo's even like projected at higher ownership than him, and Mike
that
Williams.
One I don't really get. Yeah, that one I don't really
So like you can get Devontae Adams in a spot where, again, might be the best wide receiver in football. We know that Carr's locking onto him. Like and Waller's out. Like, is this not the rest? And it's the Houston Texans. What else do I need to say to be like, Devontae Adams is in a smash spot today? And no, I haven't heard one person bring up Devontae Adams all week. So it's Josh Jacobs, Chalk. And like, so the easy fade to me is we go away from Josh Jacobs, we play Devontae Adams, and we smash, and we win all the money, and everybody else cries.
And looking at the running backs here on FanDuel, the FanDuel, I'm glad somebody asked about it, and I'm glad we moved over to it because I do think they're 2 wildly different games this week. FanDuel, not that they aren't usually. The pricing is always a little bit different, and obviously FanDuel is half-point PPR versus full-point PPR with bonuses on DraftKings. But this week, different players are very differently priced, right? Josh Jacobs is actually one of the highest priced running backs on FanDuel. If he doesn't get 100 yards and at least 1 touchdown, if not 2. Sorry, Donnie. We don't get to watch every single show in the entire industry. Not every show that I have watched has mentioned him, so apologies for that. But Josh Jacobs is 8,600 on FanDuel. That's a pretty big difference versus 6,500 on DraftKings. So he's a good example of treating the sites differently, right? Joe Mixon is another example on FanDuel. He's the highest. He's the chalkiest running back, which is wild. But he's the chalkiest running back on FanDuel because he's 7,400. He's 7K. He's like the same price on DraftKings with a lower salary cap. It's difficult for me to figure out what to do at running back on FanDuel. I feel more comfortable with some of these things, like you were saying on DraftKings. How are you looking at running back on FanDuel in particular, like beyond Jacobs there? If you're fading Jacobs, do you also have some of those same concerns with Mixon, right? Can we play T? People want to play T and Chase too, but can we like X these 2 dudes out, right? X Mixon and Jacobs out on FanDuel, move down. Ken Walker is, of course, not going to be low, but play Ken Walker, play your Dameon Pierce, play Saquon, play Breece, Aaron Jones, right? There's plenty of options. And then you're just like automatically Xing out the top 2 guys. Just trying to talk through some different strategies.
Yeah. So I as you know, I MME on FanDuel. Like that's where I prefer to MME. So I X'd out Jacobs this week just because the price tag, the projected ownership, like if he beats me, he beats me. Mixon, I'm going to play a little bit just because the price tag's a little bit better for him.
Less,
yeah. So like, it just makes more sense to play him at chalk. I want to play more Eckler, but I just can't do it at 9,500 in a spot where I'm like, they're gonna pull him. Like if they do go up some, like we've seen it in the past with the Chargers, that they're trying to preserve him as much as possible. So like that scares me against the Seattle team that, again, just awful on the defensive end. And this could be a big blowout for the Chargers. We might see what the Seahawks actually are today, which is not a good football team. So I'd love to play more Eckler. Again, I keep going to ETN, and I hate saying it because I trashed ETN all offseason in best ball, but he feels like a great pivot from some of these other guys, and his ownership projected ownership is like real low. And then you have guys like we have what's his name coming back in Indianapolis, Jonathan Taylor,
JT, yep,
who's I think he's 8K on FanDuel
and not chalk, and it's like if he comes back 100% and he's playing against Tennessee, we might see Jonathan Taylor just 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, easy, like no sweat. So that's another guy that I'm looking at a little bit more. He makes a ton of sense on FanDuel. Like if I told you, it's week 7, 2 months ago, that we'd get to this point in the season and Josh Jacobs was $600 more than Jonathan Taylor and like quadruple the ownership. I know the matchups are different. Tennessee's not an awesome running matchup, and Houston is. But like, if we had said that, you would be like, no, absolutely not. You might have been able to sell me like Josh Jacobs was super cheap and more popular, but not Josh Jacobs was $600 more expensive than JT on FanDuel, right? Where JT is better.
Yep.
I think he's one of the better tournament plays on FanDuel. I did want to hit a couple of these. Mr. Richards mentioned Chuba starting. They said earlier this week, I believe, that Foreman was going to kind of be the lead and Chuba the change of pace. I know some people have brought this up. Some people brought this up when I did my show with the player profiler guys the other day. And I mean, if you really are feeling crazy and want to dip to one of these guys, Chuba or Foreman, that's all. Go for it. That's up to you. I just don't see any way on a slate where we do have quite a few running backs that I would be interested in playing this team that, I mean, I just really don't even know how they're going to score.
It feels unnecessary, right? It just feels completely unnecessary on the slate.
What scenario happens where Chuba or Donta Foreman splitting carries? If it maybe you could convince me, maybe if they were in the Saquon role, right? They're going to catch every running back pass, get all the targets. Maybe they luck into a touchdown. Maybe we could talk about it, but I don't even know who's going to get the ball more. And the matchup is horrible against the Bucs. They're just going to get railroaded. And so some people have brought them up, and I get it because you're like, oh man, new running back without CMC. But I think we just want to look.
How many carries are they even going to have to split? Like, we think they're going to get rolled. So
they're going to run like 40 plays.
Right. So it's like, what even makes sense for them? Pacheco's the interesting one, I think. So he gets elevated to the role of starter in Kansas City. And I don't know what your immediate reaction was to that, but mine was, who cares? Because like, it was a rotational backfield anyways. I think Edwards-Helaire only had one game where he had double-digit carries to begin with all season. So like, what actually changes other than he's the starter? Now, if we see that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is like not suiting up for the game for some reason, then I guess like it makes more sense to be looking more at Pacheco. But Edwards-Helaire was catching like these random, like behind the back rotational 350 gymnast flip touchdowns from Patrick Mahomes in the red zone. But I don't, and then we still see McKinnon getting a ton of run. It's a backfield that if you guess right, then great, but it's a major guess still. I don't think this clarifies anything.
I don't think it matters. I think it's changing is him getting the first crack because CEH hasn't done anything. McKinnon is still going to play. CEH, like Pacheco was stealing a few carries here and there from CEH before. I don't think it's not a valuable backfield. This is going to sound absolutely absurd, but it feels like the Chuba Foreman thing. It's like, even if you guess right on the guy that's going to get more of the work, there's not fantasy value here. Like, and we're talking about DFS tournaments. Like if you guess right, like on a player prop or something, you double your money or whatever, go for it. What's in what world, what scenario plays itself out that one of these guys wins you a tournament? Not just like scores a touchdown, right? 60 yards and a touchdown or something like that is irrelevant in tournaments. So many other guys are going to have much bigger games than that today. You need to have a scenario in which they win you a tournament. And I just don't see it from any of these guys. I don't see it from Foreman, Chuba, Pacheco, CEH, whatever. Because there are quite a few strong running back plays. I'm actually more interested in more of these running backs. Again, like Mr. Richard asked about JT and Derrick Henry. It's one of the few scenarios where I wouldn't go crazy. And you're MMEing, so I'm curious about what your exposure of these two on FanDuel is. But like they're both the home run hitters, you know. So like I wouldn't play. I'm trying to think here. I wouldn't play the Melvin Gordon types, right? With another running back. But if these two guys happen to break off 70-yard touchdowns or something, I think you can do it, and they could just get all the touchdowns for their team. But I would not go super crazy, because the scenario in which JT wins you the slate is a tricky. It's tricky for Derrick Henry to also win you the slate.
Yeah, I don't completely hate it for like an MME structure though, where we do have a lot of value at wide receiver this week. I mean, I'm playing MVS a ton. Shocker, I guess. But I think that this Kansas City San Fran game is going to shoot out, and I think he has potential to score 2 touchdowns this week. Like that's just where I'm at with MVS. And then you have like Donovan People-Jones. You could play Duvernay real cheap. Like you have paths dubs over in Green Bay. Like you have paths to really cheap wide receivers to make like 2 elite running backs work this week, where in past weeks, it doesn't feel like you could really do that too much. So again, this feels like a throwback slate in the sense that you can do some of these things we were doing in 2015, 2016 that I haven't looked at every week's schedule going forward, but we might not get this again for the rest of the year, depending on who's on bye. I mean, we're definitely not going to get an Eagles-Bills bye again.
Yeah.
So right. I mean, so like that's the stuff I'm looking at this week.
Luis asks, what's the player multiplier to be competitive? I don't want to like give an answer and be disingenuous, because the answer is there isn't really one. It's not kind of like, you know, some people like to do that with NBA, right? 6x your salary, 7x your salary, or whatever. In football, because right, you could win a tournament today with guys that all, you know, double their salary or whatever. And if it's low scoring, which this one might be, we'll see. If it's low scoring, then, you know, it doesn't really matter, right? But what was it, 2 weeks ago or whatever? The people are like shipping tournaments with their cash teams. You know, when all the best plays all hit for big scores, you need 4 or 5, whatever, you know, X your salary, because tournament winning teams are like 300 freaking points. But on the low scoring team, right? If Josh Jacobs busts today, and Kenneth Walker busts today, and Joe Mixon busts today, and CeeDee Lamb busts today, you know, what you need to win are much different things. So it's kind of a week by week question. Ziggler says it's sleeper week. If you have the sleepers, please, by all means, send them my way. Looking at wide receiver, let's look at, I do want to talk about wide receiver, because you mentioned, I do think it's an interesting one where we don't have the elite quarterbacks. We don't have a lot of expensive wide receivers, right? Cooper Kupp is not here. Stephon Diggs is not here. Justin Jefferson is not here, etc. And so we do have Jamar Chase. We do have Devontae Adams. But like, this is why you're seeing CeeDee Lamb at such crazy high ownership on both sites, is because he's one of the leaders in target share and raw targets in the entire NFL this year. And he's playing the Lions, and Dak Prescott is back. And he's like he's a 6 in the 6Ks on DraftKings and in the 7Ks on FanDuel. I'm curious what you're doing with CD and kind of the Dallas passing attack on FanDuel specifically.
So I'm really lost on how I wanted to play CD in the beginning of the week, because is this game going to shoot out? Do I just want to onslaught Dallas or not? And I've been going back to Pollard a lot more so for the Dallas side, because everyone's talking up Zeke this week. So all that being said, it feels like look, we talked about this on Tuesday, me and you. CD hasn't even hit 100 yards in a game yet this year.
Right.
Like, and if he's going to do it any game, it's probably this one.
Yes.
He is probably good chalk. I'm not Xing him out at all. Like on FanDuel right now I have him at 15, like mixing between like 15 and 40%, like for my MME, which I'm doing a little less of this week than normal, but I am still playing CD Lamb. I kind of want a Cowboy on every team, and CD is definitely in the mix for the Cowboys that I want. Are you bringing back Amon-Ra? Like that's what I was trying to figure out earlier.
Yeah, we should talk through this game because I do think it's kind of critical for the slate. So I agree that CD is good chalk. I don't have a negative thing to say about CD other than he's extremely popular, and you should kind of figure out if you want to play him how you're going to construct that team.
Crazy targets too, by the way, like for every game this year.
Yeah, and even people like to get their hand. I like to get my hand in the dirt occasionally too, like with specific matchup type stuff. If anybody has a not super ideal matchup for Dallas, it's Michael Gallup on the outside, where they have at least one relevant outside corner. But even then, like I'm not scared of anything for anybody on the Cowboys. But similar to your like Derek Carr, Devontae Adams type stack, I don't see why we can't play these other Cowboys that are not CD, or again, bring one of them along with CD in a Dak stack and like instantly become a little bit unique. Is it like crazy unique playing Dak double? No, but everybody's going to play CD, and CD's also going to be one-offs in non-Dak stacks. So if Dak's really going to blow up, right, and you were going to play CD with them, bring somebody else along, right? Bring Schultz, bring Gallup. I do really like Gallup. Gallup had 7 targets last week from Cooper Rush, but he's back to being an every down player. He's very boom, but he's kind of like a better, you mentioned MVS. He's kind of like a better MVS, better DPJ. But like when he gets home, it's on a bomb, 100 yards and touchdown. He does score touchdowns, and now Dak is back. And so I think that either leveraging CD, right? You can play a Dak stack with Michael Gallup and Dalton Schultz. Michael Gallup is $6K. Dalton Schultz is like $4,800 on FanDuel, and Dalton Schultz is $3,600 on tight end on DraftKings, and Gallup is $5,100 on DraftKings. Who is to say that CD could have a good game and the other guys get the touchdowns? Right? Who's to say that doesn't happen? And so I'm struggling with CD as well because I want to play him because it's an awesome spot. But I think similar to the Jacobs thing is like the leverage is not only so easy and straightforward, which is sometimes kind of hard to find, but they're also really good high upside plays in their own right? Sometimes we have to go seeking out leverage, and you're like, okay, I'm going to leverage, Saquon with, I mentioned Wandale. It's like, if Saquon was chalk and I'm like, well, I'm going to play Wandale and hope he gets the touchdowns. It's like, that's pretty thin. Dalton Schultz and Michael Gallup and Devontae Adams, right? And these guys are not thin plays. They're mega upside plays. And then you can make little tweaks at running back or at expensive, right? Play Devontae and Gallup instead of CD and T. Higgins or whatever. What's the difference? The projection is really not that different. So those are the things that I'm trying to think through, because I do think the chalk is really, really easy to leverage, but it's also like really, 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 really strong. And somebody mentioned, you asked about Amon-Ra, just to close this one up. I was Marie says Josh Reynolds is active. I do like Amon-Ra, but part of why I'm a little bit okay eating the CD side of this is I do like a lot of these Lions. And I think people are overrating the Cowboys defense a bit and maybe underrating the Lions offense. And so I think you can play. I think Amon-Ra's back and fully healthy. And 3 weeks ago, before he got hurt, everybody was jamming him in every single week because he was getting CD type targets. And now he's not super chalk, which I find that kind of weird. I think you can play Josh Reynolds because all Josh Reynolds does is score fantasy points apparently on the Lions, and on probably more so on DraftKings. But again, it's a super cheap wide receiver. I think you can play Khalif Raymond, like sprinkle Khalif Raymond into your tournament builds. DJ Chark is out. Khalif Raymond's going to be the third wide receiver. And again, it's boom bust, like the Gallups, like the MBSs. But those are the kind of guys I like in tournaments, right? If Dallas is going to score 40 or whatever, you stack Dak up. I mean, somebody's got to get home on Detroit because Dallas will take the foot off the gas in the second half.
Well, that was my concern. My biggest concern is if Dallas goes on a lead and their defense is actually crushing Detroit, Dallas will absolutely just start running the football and slow this game to a grinding halt. So CD can still get there on a game like that, right? As a one-off, but your game stacks are dead if you do that. So if you're stacking Dallas, maybe you do have to bring back a Detroit player.
I think so. And I think one way to approach this game in tournaments, which again, it's going to be popular, is just all out, full out game stack, right? Just go crazy game stack, 2 Lions, double stack Dak, however you want, and bring Amon-Ra and Khalif Raymond back. You can use Hawkinson, you can use Josh Reynolds, you can use Jamal Williams. I don't know. Mario brings up Craig Reynolds. I don't know. That might be a little thin for this slate, but I mean, if you're really feeling froggy, go for it. I just think that everyone in this game is a good play, including Zeke. You mentioned, I think Zeke might get a little steamy. People just love, people just love Zeke, and he should have a good game today. So I don't have a problem with Zeke, but I like Pollard too. I just think that there's like 5 guys on each side of this game that you can play, and so there's no possible way that they can all be super popular, which is what makes me keep coming back to this game. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, you're not getting exactly off the wall stacking the game that everybody else likes. It's like, yeah, but nobody's going to play Schultz. Nobody's going to play Gallup. Nobody's going to play Raymond. Nobody's going to play Josh Reynolds. I find it interesting that nobody's going to play Jamal Williams without DeAndre Swift. A couple weeks ago, Jamal Williams is the highest owned running back on the slate without DeAndre Swift. And so I just think that there's so many ways to go about this game that it's still probably the core game for me in tournaments. And I think you mentioned playing a cowboy on every team. I think I honestly like having some at least like secondary correlation of this game within every team. There's ways to get salary relief with this game, and there's ways that you could play CD and Amon-Ra and just get 40 balls on both sides. And play your other play it with Lamar or play it with a punt quarterback or whatever. I just think there's so many ways to play this game that it's still kind of like I said, the core game of the slate for me.
So for me, I'm doing the Kansas City San Fran game.
Let's talk about that one.
So I'm stacking. I just put in my MME right before we started this show, and on FanDuel, I locked Mahomes, and I was just doing double stacks with 1 or 2 bringbacks. Is the way that I'm playing the slate. Again, I'm not playing as much volume as I normally do for my MME contest, but this Kansas City San Fran game, it's got to be Kittle week or it's never coming, because they should be playing catch up for the most part on this game. The way the game runs out most of the time, that's what I'm going with. So I love like playing like a Mahomes MVS insert player X with the bring back of Kittle or Debo. It doesn't matter. Like, this game to me is like the game of the day. And I'm just going nuts on MVS today.
Yeah.
Shocker.
This game is the most fascinating one for sure on the slate, because the 49ers are really banged up on defense. Like they do have at full strength, they do have like a legit elite defense, but people don't a lot of the times as a like a market, right? There's smart people out there that look at injuries and all that kind of stuff, but as a general like industry consensus, people will just look at like, oh look, the 49ers are whatever second ranked defense in the NFL, and they're best against tight ends for fantasy. They look at all that stuff, right? The kind of macro level data, and they don't dig in and say, well, yeah, but now they're missing 2 corners and a safety, and Eric Armstead's out, and like they're missing a bunch of dudes on defense. And now, welcome Patrick Mahomes, come into town. And I think that people are scared away from this game because I don't know who to pick. Right. That's what people are going to say. I like Mahomes. Sure. Yeah, of course. And I like Kelsey every single week, but he's really expensive. I don't even know. Like, it's very, very hard on both sides to fit Kelsey.
Right.
But it's like when you do a median projection for everybody in this game, you're like, I don't know. MVS doesn't look good. Juju doesn't look good. Hardman is useless. We talked about the running backs before. Now CMC is going to get in there a little bit and steal from Jeff Wilson. Now, Debo, Ayuk, I don't know, Kittle, you tell me. But I think playing it out in your head, like you said, if the Chiefs score like they always do, we saw what happened last week with the 49ers when they got down. They start throwing. They threw it 40 times. Jimmy is good enough to distribute the ball.
I heard you say that.
Don't cut that, Steve. Cut that. Jimmy is good enough, but to distribute the ball, right? He can get it, right? Ayuk had a huge game. Get it to Ayuk. We know deep. I mean, Jesus, you just got to like underhand it to Debo and let him run around and, score a 70-yard touchdown. And Kittle is, people forget George Kittle because he hasn't done it this year, and he does it like 3 times a season. But like he's probably the single week highest upside tight end every single week. It's just that when he doesn't do it, it's like he goes like 3 for 36. Whereas Kelsey and Andrews are just always putting up 15 to 20. Kittle does 3 or 40.
Right.
And these are the games when if they get down 14-0, George Kittle's going to catch like 12 balls for 150 yards. Because he's just going to go out there and eat, and Jimmy can't throw the ball outside the numbers. So like George Kittle's one of the guys that he can get the ball to. So Kittle is one of my favorite tournament plays, and he lives in this middle range where nobody loves to play tight end, right? Why would I spend $6,600 on George Kittle on FanDuel when I can play Foster Moreau for $4,800, right? Foster Moreau projects like the same from a median sense as George Kittle does, or people will say, well, I can just go get Mark Andrews. Why wouldn't I just go get Mark Andrews instead of Kittle? Same thing on DraftKings. People will punt it or they'll go get the superstar, and you get who is actually a superstar talent in the middle. And at 5,300 on DraftKings unowned, that's pretty appealing. John mentions Kittle blocks a lot. Yeah, this is why Kittle never like smashes if the game doesn't work, is because he doesn't run all the routes. He stays in to block. Their offensive line's also a little worse. Trent Williams is back though, so that's nice. But their offensive line is not great, and so he'll stay in to block and help. But when if it's 21-3 in the second quarter, he's not going to be staying in to block anymore. He's going to go out and run routes and catch passes. And so he's my favorite part of this game. And then I like the Chiefs wide receivers. You've mentioned MVS multiple times, MVS and Juju, because I think that they're just like the natural way to create upside in this game. MVS catches the bomb, right? Juju does that crap he did last week where he looks like a frickin' middle linebacker out there playing slot receiver, but he breaks a couple tackles, right? Yeah, he just breaks a couple tackles, and Mahomes, gets him the ball and they create some big plays. That's how Jimmy gets down. That's how Kittle smashes, right? That's how Debo smashes. That's how Ayuk smashes, is by those guys making some big plays. You don't want the dink and dunk Mahomes. You want the let's finally hit on the 60-yard touchdown, right? That's what you want. So I think that this game is maybe one of the best tournament games of the day.
Juju went from 12 years old to 57 years old real quick. Like real quick. Like
I'm trying to forget. I get confused with him and Jody Fortson. If Jody Fortson is on the field with Juju, I'm like, that dude is a tank of a tight end, and I can't tell Juju apart from this dude. He's huge. He's a monster.
The only guy that got older faster in the NFL in recent history is Todd Gurley. Remember, he was the #1 running back in the league one week, and then we all watched him just become the worst running back in the league within 4 snaps. And we were just like, oh, we know he's dust now. And we all knew. We were like, yeah, Todd Gurley's all of a sudden dust week 13 of the year that he's like the #1 running back. So Juju, yeah, he looks rough out there. MVS I like because of ownership though. Like he's coming off that 0, and people are going to be looking at that 0 and be like, oh, I can't play MVS. And he basically scored 2 touchdowns last week in the same drive, and they got pulled away from him. That downfield block really sucked, but yeah, I think that he's due for it. I mean, that's my, hardcore analysis is he's due, but he is definitely due for a big game. My bank account needs it.
Exactly. I tagged MVS in lineup HQ, and if I won't read it for everybody, but basically is what I said, the same thing as you. I'm like, I have no idea when this is going to happen, but he's not going to go 17 games without having a big game.
Right.
And this is a great spot for it at 0 ownership and an absurdly cheap price on both sites.
And he's on the field a ton. Like
Yeah.
he is on the field a lot still.
He basically plays every snap and runs every route, basically.
Right.
And nobody else does that. It's just, and you have to plug your nose and be like, look, I know he's not good.
Yeah.
Like everybody's like, oh, he's MVS. He stinks, right? All he can do is catch a long touchdown 3 times a year. It's like, yeah, but that's the point.
Yeah.
when you have him, when he catches the long touchdown, that's exactly the point. I want to hit on a couple of games really quickly before we get out of here and hit a couple of questions. I'm going to hit the questions first that I missed in chat. Anthony asks, thoughts on Pacheco in FanDuel single entry. We hit on the Chiefs backfield a little bit earlier. I just think, again, just to kind of recap it, I just don't see the upside from any of the Chiefs running backs. If it's the last man in, right, and you have everything is absolutely perfect, and you want to put, Pacheco's your flex or whatever, I don't think it's awful. I just think I would prefer something else. We're definitely going to hit on Game Set Hooked says, I want to hit on that game for sure. I promise that we will.
You don't want to hit on Jets Denver?
I would rather that they just black that game out in my area. We should talk Jets defense a little bit, I guess, really quickly. I was trying to find some questions. Jets defense is going to be, crazy popular. I know Bucks are more popular over here, but specifically talking about DraftKings, I also think this is not. Shout out to everybody that does the ownership projections. Just my gut take is I don't believe that the Jets are going to be 4% on FanDuel. They're playing Brett Rippon. It's bad. On DraftKings, they're going to be wildly popular. Again, it's kind of like the CD type thing, Josh Jacobs type thing. You can, of course, play the Jets defense. They're the best play. They give you the salary that you probably need for some lineups. But, being smart about how you're playing the Jets defense. Someone earlier asked about Breece Hall. I think playing Breece over maybe some of these running backs with your Jets defense is a way to, right, play your Carr, Devontae stack, maybe with Gallup, Breece, Jets instead of Jacobs, right? Instead of jamming in all that chalk. I think that's one way to do it. Do you have any favorite defenses as pivots off of the Jets or as pivots off of the Bucks on FanDuel?
The Bucks was the easiest to X out ever. And just to go back to that Jets game real quick, I've been trying to find a reason to play Garrett Wilson, but it's just really hard when, Zach Wilson has hooked up with more of his mom's friends than he has thrown passes to wide receivers this year. Like, it's so hard to find that reason to do that. In terms of defenses, I X'd out the Bucks immediately. I'm looking at Cincinnati. They're a little heavily owned, but they're coming in at under 10% ownership on FanDuel. Jets are there. Raiders against Houston.
Yep.
4K, under 5% ownership. Feels good. They're at home. Green Bay, maybe a little bit too expensive, but the ownership again, actually is way higher than I thought it was. That's updated. So maybe I'll be Xing them out, but I think
Jets, I still think Jets will be higher than the Packers. That's just my take. The Jets have a good defense. I think people are catching on to that. I like, as a one
Tennessee too.
Yeah. I was going to say, that was exactly what I was going to say is Tennessee. I think the Colts, have had a little bit of success. Then they've gone pass heavy. They went pass heavy against the Titans last time. They really went pass heavy last week, and the Jags just let them keep throwing 2-yard pass. It was literally, they had 2 guys have double-digit targets, and they had a combined 8 out of 4. They just Matt Ryan was not throwing the ball down the field. I think I'm not going to try to say that the Titans are sharp enough. But I would hope that the Titans are sharp enough to have seen that, and they can get a little bit of pressure sometimes up front. And just if Matt Ryan's going to drop back 50 times, you got a lot of potential for some good things to happen for your defense. So I think the Titans are one of my favorite tournament plays. Donnie asks, any interest in Brian Robinson? I think Brian Robinson more so on FanDuel, where I don't think he's going to catch a ton of balls, and that game is quite gross, but trying to find Washington here. But 6,100, I think he's similar to the ETN. You mentioned ETN before. He's kind of in that bucket where you're like, it's a young guy going to get a lot of work in a good matchup. Their offenses are meh, and the game is gross, Washington and Green Bay. But if Brian Robinson sneaks in 80 yards and 2 touchdowns, I don't know. I wouldn't be that surprised. So I think he's in play.
That's the McLaurin touchdown week for Washington, though.
Okay. You like McLaurin.
There. We should probably hit on this Chargers Seattle game
Yes.
a little harder before
want to hit.
we get out of here.
I want to hit. I'll just run through it really quickly. I do like this Bengals Falcons game. We mentioned kind of Mixon is really chalky. Burrow's kind of overpriced, particularly on FanDuel. Like, I'm not sure 7% is going to happen. He's basically the same price as Mahomes and Lamar. I just don't know how people are going to play him on FanDuel. People play Chase. I think this is a little more of a T. Higgins week for me personally, and people feel really uncomfortable with the Falcons side. Trust me, I get it. I don't feel comfortable with the Falcons side either. But Drake London is, I'm going to screw up the exact number, but he is third in the NFL in target share. They just don't throw, right? You need, just like we talked about with the 49ers, in this, you need Burrow to throw an early touchdown to T, maybe bring your Hayden Hurst along like we talked about earlier, get different with your tight end, bring him along in your Burrow stack. You need the Falcons to throw. And Drake London's going to get a ton of targets. He had a 12 target game earlier this year when they were getting housed. If the Bengals can get out ahead, you can get a big Drake London game. When are you ever going to get the guy with the third highest target share in the entire NFL at $6K on FanDuel, $5,400 on DraftKings at low-ish ownership, right? 13% here. So I do think that game makes some sense. And then let's close with Seattle and the Chargers. Tell me what are you doing with this one? Ken Walker is kind of the guy people are really, really flocking to, but how are you attacking this game?
I am playing Mike Williams for sure. And I was looking at Herbert. I don't think I'm going to actually game stack the Chargers, but I want to play Eckler in some single entry stuff. So some of the spies, I think, if I can get up to him, I'm going to be doing that like right when we get off. But Eckler, I'm fading him probably on FanDuel, but I might be playing him on DK a little bit more in my single entry stuff. I don't know if I'm bringing anybody back. I mean, the price tag for the wide receivers on Seattle on FanDuel is pretty nice. DK Metcalf, I think, is 6,900. Nice, which is literally nice. Like, DK is just a beast. Like, and the game that they should be getting pushed, I just don't know. Like, Seattle scares me. And maybe this is like preseason bias. They're playing above their heads, and I just wonder when they come back down to earth. And I feel like the Chargers are a team that, if they want to, especially, I would want to say at home, but it's probably going to be more of a Seattle crowd for that game because there are no Chargers fans. And you know what I mean? And I just think that I really, really like the DK bring back for my Chargers player. So like maybe some mini stuff like Eckler or DK or something like that.
Yeah, I think my big thing here is a little bit of a cop out, but Keenan Allen is truly questionable. I think if he misses, I think Mike Williams and Austin Eckler are awesome plays regardless, but I think having swaps and stuff ready in your teams to be able to go get your Ecklers and because they're expensive, right? So thinking through how you build your teams to be able to get to Mike Williams, maybe get a little DeAndre Carter on DraftKings at 3,700, get Gerald Everett. I think those guys make a ton of sense in tournaments if Keenan misses. If Keenan's in, I do think it muddies up the waters a little bit. And I don't know, man, the Chargers and the Seahawks, I just see this game where we all think it's going to be fireworks, and those two dipshit, pardon my French, franchises, are just like Herbert's throwing 3-yard passes every, the dude is a check down artist, and Pete goes back to establishing it with Ken Walker. I just have maybe a little bit of trepidation about the game.
Donald Parham season.
One final take, and it cannot be MVS. So I'm holding you to a different guy because I know you would use MVS. What's the one thing, the one play, whatever that's going to be in the GPP winning lineups this week?
Kyle Pitts 2 touchdowns.
Who?
Kyle Pitts.
Oh God, that's worse. I should have let you do MVS. I am going to say, well, it's tight end week here on the bold calls segment. Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz is your cowboy. There's your tight end leverage off CD, leverage off everything. Dalton Schultz is back. Dak is back. 2 touchdowns from Dalton Schultz this week. That's going to do it for us. Be ready for Kristi and Luuch are coming in here in a minute. to close you guys out. If we miss your questions, they got you here for the final 30 minutes heading into lock. And for Rob and for myself and for Steve, we will see you guys in week 8.
Peace.
What is going on, Grinders? It's Chief. It's Sunday football, and we're talking Monkey Knife Fight. This is week 7. Let's get it cracking. Get in the prop shop. There's going to be a lot of NFL in there on Sunday, folks. We're going Bengals. We're going Falcons. This game should be fairly competitive. Is it more? Is it less? Let's find out. So we're going with fantasy points here. We've got Jamar Chase sitting at 17.5 fantasy points, facing the Atlanta Falcons. I think this is going to be a big-time game for Jamar Chase. We saw him dial it up last week against the Saints. And with T. Higgins kind of getting back into rhythm here after his small injury, I think Jamar Chase continues to thrive, continues to excel. 17.5, I think he's going to catch at least 6 to 7 balls here. The question is, does he pick up the yardage? Does he get in the end zone? Definitely think he picks up the yardage in this spot to get him where we need to be. The other side of this game, we're going Drake London at 11.5, who's been leading this team in targets. And they will need him if they want to win this game this week to be successful. I think that he picks up at least 60 yards receiving here, and if he does that, I think that the catches will pick up the rest, and I think he also gets to the end zone in this one. I think this is going to be a competitive matchup yet again. Dare I say, secretly, the Atlanta Falcons might be the best team in the NFC South. At any rate, love both overs here for Chase and London. We hit these two, we ride it to the money. All right, folks, we've been talking Monkey Knife Fight for week 7. Don't worry, I'll be right back here for Monday Night Football.
Week 7, we're finally here. Welcome, RotoGrinders, NFL Crunch Time. Thanks for sticking with us here throughout the morning. I'm TheLuuch, Justin Carlucci here, joined by Andre and Kristi. What's going on, Andre? How are you, buddy?
I am doing pretty good. Tilting as usual.
It's 12:30. What are you tilting on?
I'm trying to get my lineups in.
All right,
The normal stuff. So, but other than that, just been doing good. Been busy week, but ready to talk some football and hopefully give us some winners and hopefully take some contests down myself.
I hope you do. Kristi, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing great. This is always my favorite part of the week, kind of breaking things down right before the slate locks and kind of seeing if we can come up with some extra GPP plays along the way. So yeah, looking forward to talking through it with you guys.
Yeah, drop us some questions in the Discord or in the YouTube channel. We'll get to them after we do a little position by position breakdown. Definitely check out scoresnods.com. Parlay IQ is free and it's incredible. We got you covered there on SAO. NBA and NHL are in full swing, so we're posting tons of bets over there. A lot of the same RotoGrinders experts and some other great handicappers from across the industry. I'm laughing because I see a B-Shot season long mention in the chat already. So we'll take your season long question, B-Shot. Don't worry, we got you. Check out Scores and Odds. And by the way, FanDuel, if you're in a legal sports betting state and you're a new user, you can get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. So if you aren't signed up for FanDuel Sportsbook yet, you should totally do that. Anyway, busy week here. Let's just dive right into it. What do you guys think? We'll start with quarterback, some high profile guys and some good matchups. Joe Burrow gets Atlanta, the return of Dak Prescott in a juicy matchup with Detroit. Kristi, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on quarterback here? And how do you feel about Dak Prescott first game back, but he gets the Lions?
Yeah, exactly. Gets a perfect matchup, really. Well, Joe Burrow is a guy that I have tagged this week too, and he's going to be popular, especially over on DraftKings, where he's priced at just 6.9K. really good price point. On FanDuel, you have to think about it a little bit more because he's pretty close to Mahomes over there. So I do like Burrow a lot. I think we saw him really get into playing the Burrow that we got used to accustomed seeing last year. So had a couple touchdowns to Chase last week. So I think it's a really great play. Geno Smith, I think, is up there for kind of a cheap guy. I mean, he's right in the conversation. He's been getting it done. I think that whole Chargers-Seattle game is a great one. I think both Geno Smith and Justin Herbert are great plays. Geno, if you're looking to save money, but Herbert, potentially no Keenan Allen. I know he's still a game time decision, but you've got Mike Williams and Eckler, and that whole game environment is fantastic. You brought up Dak Prescott. I know, super interesting. It's his first game back. I am a little worried, about him coming back a little bit, but he gets the perfect matchup. So the matchup makes up for it, I think. So I do have interest. Lamb is projecting to be a very popular play this week. I think Dak is a fine play. He's at a good price point. We have him just over 10% ownership. So I think he's fine. Just a couple more guys I would throw in there too. I think Derek Carr, very, very cheap, especially again on DK at 5.9K. Definitely have interest in Jacobs and Adams and some of those pieces there. And then Lamar Jackson. I think he's just a fine play, either playing him by himself or with Andrews. He seems to be a very good cash game target, more so over on FanDuel this week. The last guy I'll mention just for tournaments, because he's coming in at very low ownership, is Patrick Mahomes in that Kansas City game. Really like him over on FanDuel week, and think he's going a little bit overlooked. And then Tom Brady as well. Got to throw him in the conversation. He's been bad, but this week lines up a good one against Carolina. Mute.
Are you muted?
Mute, I think.
Amateur. I was just ranting about Chief and is it really 7? I think we're going to crush that over whatever we started with. Anyway, yeah, Chiefs Panthers had a fire sale. McCaffrey's on the 49ers now. For some reason, DJ Moore is still at home in the Carolinas. Anyway, Dre, Kristi mentioned a lot of viable plays here. What are you looking at quarterback today?
I do like Dak Prescott a lot. I know we're all scared with his finger coming back from that injury, but he was healthy enough to throw last week and playing that game. So what I'm just going to take the approach and just go with it and just let it flow. I'm pretty much not all in on Dak Prescott, but I like him a lot. And I like pairing him with a couple of his receivers today, some that are going to be low owned too. So I like that too as well. Geno Smith is another guy I really have a lot of interest in too. With the Chargers secondary being really, really, really messed up, really bad, I think that they have a chance to really still perform well here. And Geno Smith, as we know, as of now, right now, he's not the same quarterback as he once was in the past. So I like getting to him today. Obviously, my guy Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow, got to play him a lot. So I'm going to play him a good amount today. Love the playing with T. Higgins. And if you get T. Higgins and Jamar Chase together, I would try to do that because I think they both honestly have a big game today. Patrick Mahomes is going to be low owned. I love him today. Lamar Jackson, I think it's a great play. Just a little harder to get to because I don't like pairing him with his receivers unless it's Mark Andrews. So that's probably what I'm finding a little bit more difficult to get to for me. And then last but not least, I saved this guy for last because this probably might be my most overweight quarterback on today. I don't know if I'm playing Tom Brady today, but it's going to be Marcus Mariota. Just on the opposite side of that game. I think we saw what he did last week, and he's been playing well. And if he continues to rush the ball, his price pretty much allows you to get a lot of good players in your lineup. And if he gets you just up to 24 to 27 fantasy points, and no one really goes big for like 35, 40, I think that you can make that up with the rest of your lineup here on today's slate. So I love going with Marcus Mariota today a lot.
Man, if he gets 25 points, I'll take that and run. Let's move on to running back. No one's going to play Christian McCaffrey, but the game environment should be pretty good, Kristi. So I want to hear your thoughts on McCaffrey and the rest of the position here.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, you look at Josh Jacobs, I mean, he's leading the pack over on DraftKings for sure this week, just because at 6.5K, he's just been getting it done. It's really hard. I mean, we've got him projected at a little over 30% ownership, but he's just a really great play. So he's someone that I really like a lot too in that later game environment. Austin Eckler, I like him a lot too. We talked a little bit about the Chargers-Seattle game. I think over on FanDuel, he's really priced up, so he'll be a little bit lower owned, but I certainly like him. Kenneth Walker, he's still not priced up enough either for what he's doing. I think he's a fantastic play. Watched a little bit of that game last week, and he looks really, really good. Mixon is projected to carry a lot of ownership over on FanDuel, and I do like it. I have a lot of interest, like Dre, in that passing game for the Bengals today. But for the lineups that I don't have, I'm certainly using a lot of Mixon. I think he's a great play. Damian Pierce is someone that I'm getting to a little bit too. I actually like both him and Jacobs in that game environment. Pierce gets all the touches in that game, so certainly someone that I have a lot of interest in. A guy that I really like over on FanDuel is Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he's coming back. He's just at 8K. He's just not going to carry much ownership. And, if you would have said at the beginning of the year, we could get him under 10% and at that 8K price tag, we would certainly take that. So interest in him. A few other guys that I'll throw in there too. Breece Hall is someone that I like a lot. He's been getting it done. He's been picking up more carries each week, so certainly like him. And then another guy I would say over on FanDuel that I'm getting to a little bit just because he has a good price point is Brian Robinson in that Washington Green Bay game too.
Yeah, Green Bay cannot stop the run, so we'll see how those carries are divvied up between Robinson and Antonio Gibson, who they clearly do not like for whatever reason. And Gibson looked good last couple of weeks. I don't know why they refused to use Gibson, but I bet Robinson's rushing yards over, so I'm hoping they don't use Gibson at all today. Anyway, Jay, talk to me here. Running back, what's going
on? Running back, it's a lot of running backs I like today. I'm trying to narrow it down a lot if I can. I can't play Chris McCaffrey today just because he's only going to be a 20 snap count, I believe, for what they said when the news came out and said today. But I do like Jonathan Taylor. Chrissy's called on that a lot. I think he's been due all season to have a good game, and why not have a good game against Tennessee? So I like him a lot. Austin Eckler, I think it's a fantastic play, but it'd be chalky as well. I'm getting a little bit under the weight on Josh Jacobs, but I have my reasons for it. But I do like him as a play still. I do like Breece Hall a lot in this Denver Jets game. Damian Pierce, who just keeps getting also feeding the rock. And my a couple of my very sneaky plays that I do love to get to a lot of, and I'm going to have a lot of them, is Ezekiel Elliott, who's coming in at single-digit ownership, and Travis Etienne also. So those guys I would definitely try to be overweight the field on. I think they have GPP winning upside on this slate today.
I like the Zeke call. No one seems to be going there, and this Detroit defense just isn't good. You agree with me, Kristi?
I do. I'm glad you guys brought him up because I do, and I actually think Tony Pollard, you could throw him in there too. I think both of them, are just really interesting, and they're going to get a lot of touches. And with CeeDee Lamb being so popular, I think that's a great call.
Speaking of CeeDee Lamb, Kristi, how much are you prioritizing him in either cash or tournaments today?
Yeah, I do certainly like him, and I have more of him over on DraftKings for sure. I mean, he's only 6.8K, such a great price point over there. So I think he makes sense. I know Dre talked a lot about really liking Dak, and how can you not like Lamb in that game? Both him and Gallup, I think, are very, very good plays. Gallup will be a lot less ownership. Some other guys that I really like, T. Higgins is set to be pretty popular, but I really like him. I like him and Chase, and we kind of talked about pairing both of them, and I do have a couple of lineups where I do have both of them mixed in there. I think it's a fantastic play. Devontae Adams, for me, I'm really trying to get either Jacobs or Adams in there because we know where the offensive production is in there. No Waller. So I like getting at least one of those guys in my lineups. I wrote up DK Metcalf. He's probably one of my favorite plays today too. Lockett looks like going to play, but he's dealing with a hamstring injury. And so to me, give me DK Metcalf. He has upside down the field. And I think we see that today against the Chargers. Mike Williams obviously is a really great play today as well in that same game environment. Someone that I like, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I like him as a bring back in some of those Dallas stacks too, with CeeDee Lamb and some of those guys in there. I think he's a great play. I mentioned Michael Gallup. I just don't think he's going to carry much ownership, but I think he has a really good matchup today too, and wouldn't surprise me, if he gets a touchdown or two in that lineup. And then, you talk about some of the Tampa Bay receivers too. I think Godwin and Evans are both really great plays. And I think they'll be, much lower owned. I know Mike Evans is coming in at under 10%. Godwin's a little bit higher than that, but I think they're both fine plays too, and guys I have interest in.
Okay. Good stuff. Dre, over to you. Wide receiver.
Wide receiver, I like we mentioned Gallup. I like him a lot. Low ownership play. Drake London, I like getting to him a good amount too as well. We mentioned Mike Williams too, so he's good. I'm gonna go with some of the lower like GPP guys. I like Hunter Renfrow if he's gonna, which I think he'll play today. I like him a lot. I like Brandon Cooks getting to him. Amon-Ra St. Brown should not be only 10% owned. That man is gonna have a big game today. I like him a lot. I like even running him back with Zeke on the opposite end and getting a little mini game sack today a lot too. So I don't like as much Tyler Lockett just because of the hamstring. That's really concerning. So I'm playing heavy, really a lot on heavy amount of DK Metcalf. I like getting to some of these Green Bay receivers and Romeo Doubs and Lazard. So getting to them a little bit. One of my favorite, two of my favorite GPP plays for wide receiver are going to be Michael Pittman Jr. coming in at low digit ownership, and Terry McLaurin. I think this is his time to shine. He getting his old best friend back in Tyler Heineke, and I think he's going to have a big game here today. So I like those two guys a lot today. Going to be well over the field of them.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Heineke can't be any worse than Carson Wentz. Like almost objectively, like it just can't get worse. I don't think. I mean, there's an outcome where it is, but anyway, let's talk tight end. And if you guys and girls have any questions about defenses, drop them in the chat, and we'll cover defense if you have any questions. Tight end, there's a lot of them that are in pretty good spots. It seems like anyway. What are you thinking over there, Kristi?
Yeah, there really are. And it seems like this is the week where there's just a ton of cheap options where I think most people are going to be looking to pay down. So if you're paying up, you're automatically going to have a different look to your lineup. So at the low end, I think there are a lot of great options. I think Foster Moreau is, with Waller being out, he's going to be fairly popular just because he's really cheap on both sites. I think Dolchik, we saw what he did in that Denver game, and he's just $4K over on FanDuel, $2,500 on DraftKings. So I think those are a couple that are going to be very popular. Some other guys I really like. I like Hayden Hurst in that Cincinnati game. He gets kind of a revenge narrative there, and he's been talking it up in the media this past week. I think, he's looking forward to this game for sure. So I have interest there. David Njoku, I think he consistently gets it done. Another nice matchup for him. Gerald Everett, I really like his price point over on DraftKings. He's got to be one of the better tight end plays, just 4K over on DK. And then Cade Otton too is another cheap guy too that I think has. There's a few people that have him tagged this week as well. To get different, and Dalton Schultz, I should also mention him in the Dallas game. Nice price point over. Really on both sides, but on FanDuel, cheap price point over there. But now I think a guy like Kelsey, coming in at just under basically 6% ownership. I mean, we talked about that Chiefs game. I mean, we've seen him just, his upside, he's had 4 touchdowns in a game this year. So just an absolutely phenomenal play. And now's the week to get him at virtually no ownership. So I certainly have interest in Kelsey. And again, if you're paying up, I think Mark Andrews certainly makes some sense too. So I think, pay up maybe to get Kelsey to get different. I like that route a lot. Otherwise, there's a ton of cheap value to pick from. And a lot of good choices there for sure.
Yeah, a lot of good value too. So it seems like ownership's going to be kept in check across the board at tight end. Dre, you paying up for any tight ends today?
I do like getting to Kelsey a good amount, but K-Dot is probably my favorite tight end. So I'm trying to get as much Kelsey as I can, but it's just hard just with my construction that I'm having today. But so like a guy like I said, K-Dot and Dalton Schultz, George Kittle, Noah Fant, those guys that I think are not going to be highly owned is the guys I'm trying to get to a lot more of today. I'm trying to get also to Mark Andrews if I can as well, but that's very, very difficult on this slate. Like I said, with the way I'm building my lineups today. So not obviously impossible, but it's very, very tough for me. I also do like Robert Tonyan. I like Evan Ingram too today. And TJ Hawkinson as well. We can't forget about him. And obviously Hayden Hurts. Tight end to me, like I said this I think on FanDuel Friday, that it's like defense in a way nowadays. Like you don't know which one's going to go off and have a good game. So having exposure to a good amount of them is good, especially in this day and age where they also are treated kind of in a way like running backs catching short passes in the middle of the field. So, and if you can rack up enough of them and get a couple touchdowns or two, you'll be good to go.
Cool. 12:47 Eastern time. Before we get into questions, Kristi, if you have one lineup, single entry, not a crazy number of entries, not super large field. I don't know. What's your stack? You have a game stack or a quarterback receiver combo you like the most by any chance?
Yeah, for me today, it's the Bengals. I've liked that one all week, and there's a lot of different ways you can go, but I really like Chase and Higgins a lot, and even Mixon in the non Burrow lineups that I have. But I just like that whole game.
Dre, who do you seem to be landing on, the most if you had to pick one?
If I had to pick, I'm going to say, I know. I'm just going to say probably like $4 million. I'm going to say Geno Smith. I'm going to say Geno Smith Geno Smith is my guy.
All right, I'm going to start in the Discord here. We got a couple questions. What's up, JMVP? DK Cash question. I'll start with you, Dre. Would you rather have for DK Cash Alec Pierce and Austin Eckler, or DK Metcalf and Alec Pierce? Or I guess that's a 1v1. So
yeah, I'm about to say I love Alec Pierce today. He's a good play. Give me DK
Metcalf or Eckler. Metcalf or Eckler, I guess it comes down to.
Oh goodness gracious! I'm gonna have to tag. Oh, that's tough. I'm gonna say Eckler. See, I don't know the situation with I'm gonna say DK right now, but yeah, I'm gonna say DK. Because I don't know the situation with the Chargers with their receivers. Also, Eckler could be in store for a bigger workload today as well.
Okay, Kristi, FanDuel single entry: Romeo Doubs and the Jets defense, or DK Metcalf and the Falcons defense?
I would say Metcalf and the Falcons defense.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you with how variant defense is.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. FanDuel Cash. Kristi, I think you play more in FanDuel, so I'm going to stick here with you if that's okay.
Yeah.
FanDuel Cash. Would you rather have T. Higgins and Foster Moreau, or CeeDee Lamb and DeLuuch?
I would say CeeDee Lamb and DeLuuch.
And this kind of goes hand in hand with Mike's question. Like, are you okay with rostering two players from the same team in cash games?
Yeah, I know. I mean, yeah, if it's a really obvious good play, yeah, I think that's all right.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, Dre, GPP looks like for FanDuel. Straight up, battle of the Brandons. Brandon Ayuk or Brandon Cooks?
Cooks.
Okay.
GPP? Is it FanDuel or DK?
That's FanDuel GPP.
Okay, then we're going to go Ayuk.
Okay. Ayuk for FanDuel, Raymond. All right, JMVP. All right, we'll go with Kristi. For DK Cash, how would you rank these wide receivers? Godwin, Pittman, and Metcalf.
I would say Metcalf, Pittman, Godwin.
Okay. FanDuel single entry, Dre. Would you rather have straight up Chris Godwin or DK Metcalf?
Godwin or DK Metcalf for FanDuel? Goodness. I'm going to say DK because I think the touchdown upside is going to be higher with him.
Okay. Any interest in the rookie, Pachenko? We figured I'd know how to say his name, but I probably don't. Kansas City rookie tailback. Looks like there's another player in the backfield there for Kansas City, Kristi. What are your thoughts?
You know, they've been mixing it up anyways. I know he's getting the start this week for sure. So for me, I'm kind of reserving him for kind of the large field GPPs. But yeah, I think he's in the mix. I mean, he could easily get a touchdown or two. Yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay. And I got a FanDuel Cash question. I'll stick right here with you. Would you rather have Metcalf or T. Higgins for FanDuel Cash today?
Oh, gosh. That's a tough one. I would probably go Metcalf just because, you know, Lockett is playing injured. So I think I'd go Metcalf, but it's close. I like both.
Okay. And that 1v1 is a 2v2 in the Discord from earlier, Dre. It's Alec Pierce and Eckler or Metcalf and Breece Hall. That's what it was.
Alec Pierce and Metcalf or Eckler and
Alec Pierce and Eckler or Metcalf and Breece Hall.
I like both of them a lot. I'm going to say the second one more.
Okay, Breece Hall combo. FanDuel GPP, Kristi, Debo or Mike Williams, straight up.
That is really close too. I think this is kind of our last week to get Debo before, you know, McCaffrey kind of mixes in there. But I still think I'm going to go Williams just because I think Keenan's probably not going to play. So yeah, I think I'd go Williams.
Okay, sounds good. Let's see. B-Shot, I'm going to save your season-long question for the end if we have time. 12:53, start wrapping it up. FanDuel Cash. I think maybe we saw this one already. Higgins and Moreau or CD and DeLuuch. Was that the same question from the Discord? Must have been. Anyway, Higgins and Moreau, I think, is probably the FanDuel Cash combo over CD and DeLuuch. I think that's what we said, right? Who's more important for FanDuel Cash lineups, Devontae Adams or Josh Jacobs, Kristi? That's a good one.
For cash lineups?
Yes.
For me, I'm playing Jacobs this week, but I think they're both great plays, and it's kind of one I'm trying to get at least one of them in my lineups. I don't think he can go wrong, but I'd probably lean Jacobs.
Hey, Dre, is there a better option than DJ Moore, like a sub 5K wide receiver? Anybody else you're considering that's under 5K in your builds?
I'm not going to lie. I low-key love DJ Moore today. He's the only one left. Just like Will Smith in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in the last episode. He has to get played. So, like, just play DJ Moore today. I'm taking my chances on DJ Moore.
This is the squeakiest wheels of all squeaky wheel weeks, right? Like, it just has to be.
If he doesn't get there today, I will not play him for the rest of the season.
Exactly, right?
Yep. All right, question in the Discord. YOLO GPP, do you play the Gus bus? It looks like he's warming up as a starter. Kristi, what are your thoughts on the Baltimore backfield? I still think Kenyon Drake's going to get some volume today.
I do too. See, I do too. I do think, I mean, we saw what he did last week too. He looked pretty good, and now he gets an opportunity. I mean, to me, that's just it's a large field play for sure for Gus. I mean, just because of his price point. I think he's 4K over on DK, so kind of a Millie Maker type play. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Drake is more of the play.
Tournament play on FanDuel, Dre. Would you rather have Breece Hall or Joe Mixon straight up with no other context? Breece Hall. DK Cash, Kristi. Would you rather have CeeDee Lamb or Amon-Ra St. Brown?
I like them both, and I think, you know, like I know I have a lineup with both of them in there just because of that game environment. But I would probably, I'd probably lean Lamb, but I like them both.
Yeah, we had a what about Kenyon Drake, and I just saw that question. So, I mean, do you guys have any exposure to Kenyon Drake anywhere, or you haven't mixed in anywhere at all?
I don't actually, but I considered him. I really did, just because of his price point. I didn't get to him, but I think he's fine.
Okay, I got a half a lineup 4v4 question for you, Kristi. FanDuel Cash. I'll go slow. Lamar, Kenneth Walker, Wan'Dale Robinson, and the Bengals defense.
Okay.
Or Geno Smith, Leonard Fournette, DK Metcalf, and the Seattle defense.
Oh, I think, those are really good too. And we didn't talk about Wan'Dale Robinson, but I think he's really, really interesting this week for sure. I think I'd probably go the second one just because you're able to you've got Metcalf in there, right? And you've got, who's the other? Yeah, and Fournette in there. So I think I'd go the second one, even though you're punting a little bit with Seattle defense. But
yeah, Wandale, I mean, he's a tournament play, I think.
He's a tournament play for sure.
Wide range of outcomes there. He might not score, right? Or he'll rip
or
off.
He could score a couple touchdowns easily. Yeah.
Agreed. Hey Dre, do you like Bates or Turner at tight end since Logan Thomas is out again? Are you going there or are you going somewhere else at tight end for value?
I just other tight ends I will go with someone else.
Okay. Greg says I'm not dying on the island of Foster Moreau. Well, it's better to die on the island when he's not complete chalk. So
right.
And it seems like his ownership will be okay. Let's see. I'm looking for more questions. Here we go. Any thoughts on 3 running back combo? I mean, yeah, you can play 3 running backs in a lineup for sure. I mean, there's plenty of options this week. How about this one? FanDuel Cash, Jamal Williams or Breece Hall straight up, Kristi?
Ooh, for tournaments, I'm assuming?
It's cash.
This is cash. Jamal Williams. I would go Breece Hall for cash, but I do think Williams is interesting for tournaments.
I agree. 12:57 Eastern, guys. Start wrapping up. FanDuel single entry, Dre. Would you rather have Leonard Fournette or Devontae Adams?
Fournette or Devontae? Oh, cash. Oh,
no,
gosh.
I don't think so. I think it's tournament.
If it's cash, it's Lenny. If it's tournaments, Devontae.
Okay. Is Lamar with both Drake and Hill to eat passing touchdowns to pivot off Andrew's chalk to Galaxy Brainish on FanDuel? Probably. Yeah, probably.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Andrews is catching a touchdown today.
Okay, we'll go lightning round here. 2 minutes. Travis Etienne or Jamal Williams, Kristi? I don't know what format.
Ooh.
I would say Jamal Williams, but I like them both.
All right. Hey, Drake, Kittle or Debo for DK single entry?
Kittle.
Okay. FanDuel Cash, Jamal Williams or Breece Hall? I think we said Breece Hall. Let's see. Dak or Brady for FanDuel Cash, Kristi?
Dak or Brady for FanDuel Cash? I think I would go. Oh, that's a tough one. I think I'd go Dak on that one.
Is Lockett, your last guy in a DK cash build, okay, Dre?
I don't think so, just because I don't like the hamstring. I have a bad hamstring just from trying to run now. So I don't, and it hurts for a long time. You can't run again for a while. So I personally say no.
Okay. FanDuel Cash question for Kristi, Brandon Cooks or Brandon Ayuk?
I think I'd actually go Ayuk.
Okay. How about Curtis Samuel or DJ Moore for FanDuel Cash?
I'd probably go DJ Moore on that one, just because he's the last guy left, like Dre said. But I think they're both fine.
Okay. Aaron Jones or Dameon Pierce for cash? Anybody?
Aaron Jones or Dameon Pierce?
Yes.
Dameon Pierce for me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're at lock. Had a lot of great questions. Tried to get to as many as I can. Try to get some new ones in there. I try to hit some repeat question askers when I can, but I tried to answer a little bit of everybody. So hope we did an okay job for you guys here. We are about to kick off week 7. You guys got any hot takes today? Dre, I mean, I know you usually got some good stuff from you.
He's always got some good stuff, Dre. I can't wait to hear it.
Well, I said it before that, well, for GPP wise, I think Marcus Mariota, even though I like Geno Smith, I think Marcus Mariota game stack wins it all, along with the Zeke Elliott, Amon-Ra St. Brown run back in there.
Okay. Kristi, how many points are the Bengals going to score today? That's my question.
Ooh, that's a good call. I think they're definitely going to hit the over. I think this is a big Burrow day. I think he airs it out a lot, and I think he's one of the highest scoring touchdowns on the slate for sure.
That works for the Mariota game script, Dre, right? That's what you want to hear too.
Yes, it does.
Cool. Well, thanks for sticking with us, guys. Hope you have a great Sunday. Steve, thanks for producing this thing and keeping track of my mute count. So For Steve, Dre, Kristi, and everybody else that was before us, I'm Justin. Good luck, everybody, and have a good day.